Chapter 743. Roar! The mutated Shi-Yen evil dragon's ferocious might shook the heavens and was peerlessly domineering. Its furious attack killed a profound world realm expert from the Shura sect with lightning speed. The terrifying power caused more than half of the mountain to collapse. Such a spectacular scene was a shock to the eyes of countless people. Shudder. Everyone shuddered. Chu Hen had only left the province for slightly more than a year, yet he had displayed such terrifying strength upon his return. Profound world realm companion, beast emperor. The strength he displayed was not any weaker than the sect master of the illusory rain sect. Kill. Charge. Trample. The Shura sect, the Heavenly Sword Pavilion, the Thousand Crane sect, and the General Alliance were invincible. For the sake of supporting Mu Feng, Chu Hen didn't hold back at all, and he mobilized all the elites of the General Alliance. The Demon Beast army charged at the front and broke through the enemy's formation. The experts of the Thousand Crane sect followed closely behind and seized the opportunity to launch a frenzied slaughter. The Thousand Crane sect and the Shura sect were mortal enemies. He didn't show any mercy when he attacked. Sharp, ice-cold blades mercilessly stabbed into the enemy's chest and heart. Blood dyed the ground red. Broken corpses lay on the ground in Yunluo Gorge. The battle line continued to extend and lengthen. The entire canyon was filled with battle cries. The cruel scene was just like the rumored Azura Hell. It's really chaotic. Dan Zhen, Fu Qin, and the others stood at the peak of a mountain and watched the intense battle in front of them. Even though they came from Mount Kunliu, they couldn't help but be moved by the scene. Go if you want to, Dan Zhen said to Qin, Qi Shu Hua behind her. After all, this was a battle between the major sections. As an outsider, Mount Kunliu couldn't interfere in this matter. However, Qin, Qi Hua, and Qin wanted to help Chu Hen. It was obvious from their restless eyes that they didn't want to stand by and watch. Won't the Hall Master blame us if we do that? Hua Shui asked. Dan Zhen smiled indifferently. Blame what? Isn't Chu Hen the future sect master of Mount Kunliu? Isn't the sect master's matter our Mount Kunliu's matter? The eyes of the four girls lit up. If you guys aren't going to make a move, then I'll be making a move first. As soon as he finished speaking, Shan Zhen immediately transformed into a ray of light and shot out. Dazzling and resplendent golden patterns of light spread out from his body like spirit vines in the next moment. The golden light patterns that spread out with Dan Zhen at the center quickly solidified. They immediately transformed into a majestic and domineering giant golden eagle. Screech! The loud and clear eagle's cry resounded through the mountains and rivers, and the powerful sound waves shook everyone's eardrums. With a loud screech, the giant golden hawk that Shan Jin had transformed into crashed into an earth-profound realm expert from the illusory rain sect with the force of a collision. It was earth-shattering, and the void trembled. The terrifying energy that was like a volcanic eruption directly surged into the sky. The powerful shockwave was like a huge tide that spread endlessly, causing the sky to darken and the earth to lose color. The earth-profound realm expert from the illusory rain sect did not even have the chance to scream before he was blasted into pieces by the powerful impact. What? It was actually another earth-profound realm expert? Lian Xiao, Flying Snow Palace, Helianzhong, and the others were both shocked and furious. They were extremely shocked. Where did Chu Hen find so many helpers? Every one of them was terrifyingly strong. If the situation continued to develop like this, even if Lian Xiao and the others won today, their vitality would be greatly damaged, and it would be difficult for them to recover for a long time. Senior brother Shan Zhen is too fast. Before Zither, Ji Shu, and the others could react, Shan Zhen had already made his move. It really made them a little speechless. Immediately, the four girls flew out one after another without any hesitation and threw themselves into the chaotic battle. Zither, Ji Shu, and Go all possessed extraordinary combat strength. As a medical master, Hua Shui directly activated Mount Kunliu's strongest medical secret technique, the accumulating spirit saint origin technique. Boom! In an instant, a dazzling holy radiance erupted from Hua Shui's body. Beams of white light were released from her body, and then they fell into the bodies of the Thousand Crane Sect, Heavenly Sword Pavilion, and the General's Alliance's injured. Something that shocked everyone happened. The injuries on the injured were instantly healed. Fluorescent light flowed around their bodies as their wounds healed and scabs formed, and they once again erupted with powerful vitality. Their injuries healed just like that. What's going on? Amidst their shock, everyone turned around and saw Hua Shui, who was emanating immortal qi, and they were instantly overjoyed. It's Miss Hua Shui, someone from the General's Alliance shouted. Isn't she too powerful? It's a healing technique. Kill. With Hua Shui's powerful assistance, the morale of the General's Alliance, Thousand Crane Sect, and Heavenly Sword Pavilion skyrocketed. All of them immediately became fearless, and they charged into the enemy's ranks to slaughter them. Meanwhile, the Shura Sect, Illusory Rain Sect, and Otherworldly Spirit Sect were in a complete panic. How were they supposed to fight? They were already completely suppressed in terms of morale, and now that such a monstrous assistance had appeared, there was no way they could fight. Although Hua Shui's spirit accumulation of sacred qi was powerful, there were too many people here. It did not take long for Hua Shui's pretty face to turn pale, and the Reiki energy in her brain palace was rapidly depleting. Ji Shu returned to Hua Shui's side and warned, "Don't take care of everyone. You won't be able to take care of everyone. Heal those who are more seriously injured." "I got it." Hua Shui nodded, and then withdrew a portion of her Saint Qi, mainly to heal those who were more seriously injured. Damn it! Lian Shao, who was fighting the Thousand Crane Sect Master Qizhang, was enraged when he saw the current situation. Their previously advantageous situation had been destroyed just like that. He roared at Helian Zhong and Flying Snow Palace. "Why are you still stalling for time? Hurry up and kill these two little thieves." From the crowd's point of view, Qizhang was the strongest among them. With Lian Shao holding Qizhang back, the others just needed to speed up and finish off Chu Hen and Mu Feng, and they would be able to turn the tide. Unbeknownst to them, the other two were inwardly complaining. Back at the Otherworldly Spirit Sect, Flying Snow Palace had already lost to Mu Feng once. Even though they had learned from their past mistakes, it was still difficult for them to reverse the situation in a short period of time. As for Helian Zhong, he was even more aggrieved. Chu Hen, who was only in the second order of the Earth Profound Realm, had a terrifyingly strong physical body. In addition to that, Helian Zhong, who specialized in illusions, was clearly his weakness in close combat. Chu Hen had completely grasped Helian Zhong's weakness. With his golden body, he didn't even give Helian Zhong time to use his illusions. Step by step, he pressed on, beating Helian Zhong until he had no way to retaliate. Buzz! A majestic and monstrous aura erupted from Chu Hen's body. A powerful black light covered his entire arm like the flames of the netherworld. Bang! A heavy shockwave exploded in the air. The power of Chu Hen's fist was like a mountain as it collided with Helian Zhong's fist attack. A circle of black ripples spread out in the sky. Helian Zhong's body trembled. The blood in his body surged, and a trace of blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. The terrifying impact directly sent him flying. Sect Master! The disciples of the Illusory Rain Sect were shocked. In the next moment, a powerful sword force gushed out from Chu Hen's body. A dozen or so condensed black sword lights appeared out of thin air in front of Chu Hen. Moreover, they erupted with a desolate aura. They flew out and took advantage of the momentum to slash towards Helian Zhong. However, facing the piercingly cold sword energy flying in front of him, a cold smile appeared on Helian Zhong's face. "Ha! I've been waiting for this moment. I'm sorry to tell you you're finished. Ta!" Suddenly, Helion-Joan clasped his 10 fingers together and formed a strange seal. An invisible and powerful aura was quickly released from his body. Illusion, heavenly cage of darkness. Illusion, heavenly cage of darkness. Boom! As Helion-Joan's voice fell, a boundless and cold aura suddenly extended into the world. The sky above Chu-Hen was immediately covered by dark clouds, covering the sky and covering the sun. Waves of restless spatial rhythms surged over. Darkness, like the curtain of night, quickly descended, quickly devouring every ray of light in the space where Chu-Hen was. The dozen sword beams that flew towards the opponent also collapsed between heaven and earth, turning into fragments that filled the sky and disappeared into the darkness. The bright and beautiful day a second ago had instantly turned into night. The strongest illusion of the illusory rain sect. Heavenly cage of darkness. In the blink of an eye, Chu-Hen found himself in a strange, dark space. Everything around him became extremely far away. He could only see the outline of a black shadow, and he could not clearly distinguish the color. The distorted space was like a dream or an illusion. Chu-Hen was no stranger to this move. Back at the Heavenly Sword Pavilion's Sword Codex, illusory rain sect's core disciple, Huanju Xiaorumen, had used it. At that time, her opponent was one of the 4 great young masters, Cui Qi. At that time, the battle between Xiaorumen and Cui Qi could be said to be a magnificent feast for the eyes. And now, those 2 people had gone to the Eastern Victory States Taiqing sect with Wu Yuan, Xilan, Yanhanlu, and the others. To be honest, the relationship between Huanju, Xiaorumen, and Chu-Hen was quite subtle. They were like friends, but not friends, and enemies, but not enemies. Of course, this did not affect the enmity between Chu-Hen and the illusory rain sect. It's my turn now. Helion-Joan's cold laughter came from all directions. His body also merged into the endless darkness, completely disappearing in front of Chu-Hen. As the sect master of the illusory rain sect, Helion-Joan had a lot of combat experience. He had purposely endured Chu-Hen's punch in order to increase the distance between him and Chu-Hen so that he could use the illusion technique he was most proficient in. Otherwise, with Chu-Hen's extremely fast pace in close combat, he would not have had the time to use this heavenly cage of darkness. In an instant, all kinds of destructive power surged towards Chu-Hen from all directions. Brothers, your rewards for the past few days have been really awesome. Today, you have received 10,000 rewards again. Thank you to Brother Xingqian for being promoted to the leader of this book's fan ranking. I will continue to work hard. Chapter 744. Illusion. Heavenly cage of darkness. The endless dark space was like a dream, showing an illusory and distorted state. Chu-Hen was immediately trapped in this strange dark area. Everything in the surroundings had been pulled far away, as if they were separated by a very long distance. It's my turn next. Helion-Joan, who had merged with the darkness, let out a cold and proud smile. In his opinion, as long as he seized the opportunity to use the illusion, Chu-Hen would definitely die. Rumble! All kinds of destructive energy surged from all directions around Chu-Hen. The scorching sea of fire in front of him was rushing toward him, and the raging torrent and tsunami behind him was attacking. On his right was the unstoppable tens of thousands of lightning pillars, and on his left was the endless rain of light and wind blades. The abnormally violent power of the 4 symbols appeared in all directions around Chu-Hen at this moment. It had to be said that compared to the heavenly cage of darkness that Xiaorumen had used during the Sword Code gathering, the power that Helion-Joan had erupted with was many times stronger, for waves of raging energy rushed towards Chu-Hen, who was in the middle, with a momentum that could topple mountains and overturn the seas, shaking the heavens. Buzz! Chu-Hen's eyes turned cold, and a powerful and fierce aura erupted from his body. The powerful black light stacked up like a raging wave. Then Chu-Hen's figure moved, leaping even higher into the sky. his body quickly rotated, and the powerful wave of air between the heaven and earth formed a powerful whirlpool tornado. One sword deity, myriad sword calamity. Swish, swish, swish! In the next moment, countless incomparably fierce black sword lights burst out from Chu Hen's body. Like 10,000 swords returning to their origin, they splashed and slashed in all directions. Boom! Bang! The incomparably powerful sword rain fiercely and fiercely collided with the enormous power of the four symbols. Continuous loud noises resounded, undulating in the dark cage. The rain of fire flew, water splashed, lightning flashed, and wind blades shattered. Although the illusory power here was extremely powerful, it was all blocked by Chu Hen's sword light 100 meters away. The dense rain of swords that filled the sky came one after another, and there seemed to be a huge, illusory, and transparent circular protective sword shield around Chu Hen's body. The protective sword barrier acted like a protective shield, blocking all external attacks. Humph! A cold shout came from the darkness. Ta! Like two palms intersecting, the sound of rapid hand seals caused faint air waves to ripple. Boom! Immediately after, an even more majestic aura burst forth. A sea of fire, a torrent, a lightning region, and a rain of wind blades, all of them soared into the sky. An entire darkness prison became abnormally chaotic. Along with a series of earth-shattering roars, a ferocious and terrifying monster rushed out of the four areas, filled with violent energy. Scorching heat waves covered the sky and covered the earth. In front of them was a flaming winged tiger that shook the mountains and rivers. Icy coldness caused water to splash in all directions, and then a snow-white WIRM surged through the air. Within the lightning region that was covered in crisscrossing lightning, a lightning bird that was covered in silver light whistled through the air. Moreover, within the rain of wind blades was a heavenly horse that had 4 wings on its back, and it stood on a green light. All 4 of these colossi were over a kilometer long, and their ferocious auras were shocking and awe-inspiring. Moreover, the auras of these ferocious beasts were extremely shocking, and it was impossible to distinguish if they were real or formed by an illusory technique. The members of the various powers outside the illusory realm were shocked when they sensed the imposing auras that erupted from the 4 colossi within the darkness prison. Shit! Quickly go help Chu Hen. Su Yorong was the first to be unable to restrain herself from speaking anxiously. The members of the Thousand Crane Sect and Skylink Sword Pavilion couldn't help but reveal solemn expressions as well. Qi Zhang's brows knit together tightly, and he intended to flash towards the darkness prison. However, before he could escape 100 meters away, a blood-red pillar of light soared into the sky in front of him. With the momentum of piercing through the air, it blocked the other party's path. Don't forget that I'm your opponent. Lian Fu's hair was disheveled, and his savage face seemed like that of a devil. How could he allow Qi Zhang to assist Chu Hen at a time like this? The blood-red bone blades that grew out of his palms flickered with a dazzling and bloody aura as they attacked Lian Fu in a dense barrage. Mu Feng, who was locked in fierce battle with Flying Snow Palace, frowned slightly. The former's attacks had clearly become even swifter, and the tempo of the attacks was increasing. Obviously, both sides were trying to buy time for Helian Zhong. So long as they dealt with Chu Hen first, then the current situation could still be turned around. A fierce battle erupted in the heavens and the earth. All sorts of shock waves exploded within Cloud Luo Gorge, and the ground had sunk down into numerous enormous holes. Ridges after ridges were flattened and reduced to ruins. Senior Brother Shanzhen, go help Chu Hen. Hua Shui exclaimed. However, Shanzhen had no intention of interfering at all. He hovered in midair with an awe-inspiring aura as he said, "Don't worry. It's still early. I still want to see the other techniques of the one-sword, flying, immortal technique." Everyone was slightly stunned. Even the members of the General Alliance, who'd flown over to assist Helian Zhong, couldn't help but stop in their tracks. Roar! Woo! At practically the exact same moment, the space within the darkness prison started to tremble and warp indeterminately. For colossi emanated monstrous rage and ferociousness as they charged towards Chu Hen at the center. The fierce rain of swords struck their bodies, but the damage was limited. It was difficult to withstand the aura of these four colossi. Suddenly, a faint light flashed across the corner of Chu Hen's eyes. With a thought, a resonant metallic hum sounded, and a holy sword flashing with green light patterns suddenly appeared in front of Chu Hen. Hum! Chu Hen formed a sword art with one hand, and the blue sky, sacred sword shone brightly. It circled around Chu Hen's body and then split into four, transforming into four identical blue sky, sacred swords. Swoosh! In an instant, the four blue sky swords shot out in four different directions, like arrows released from a bow. Boom! An especially powerful and astonishing sword aura surged out. In the process of meeting the four enormous beasts, the four sky jade swords simultaneously blossomed with a dazzling brilliance that was like the sun. Countless green light patterns were released from the swords and intertwined to form an enormous sword light that was hundreds of meters long. Subsequently, under the astonished gazes of the spectators, four enormous green sword lights struck the four gigantic beasts at the same time. Bang! Boom! In the next second, the entire dark cage suddenly became colorful and dazzling. The gorgeous airwave energy was like a stormy sea, wantonly stacking and blending together. A heavy and violent sound rang out like a thunderstorm. The flame-winged tiger, the white flood dragon, the lightning divine bird, and the four-winged Pegasus all collided with the four sword lights and exploded into pieces. Countless green sword lights flew out in a disorderly manner. Fireballs, waves of water, lightning arcs, wind blades. All sorts of chaotic forces were like a storm that swept across the world, and it almost tore the illusory space apart. He actually blocked it? Everyone from the major factions was shocked. The Generals' Alliance, Thousand Crane Sect, and Heavenly Sword Pavilion were all amazed. As for the Shura Sect, Illusory Rain Sect, and Otherworldly Spirit Sect, their faces were dark, shocked, and furious. Looks like the Illusory Rain Sect's illusory arts are only SOO. An indifferent and frivolous laugh came out of Chu Hen's mouth. Hum! The space trembled, and a powerful purple fireball erupted from Chu Hen's body. The dense purple light covered the sky and the earth, completely enveloping Chu Hen. Then Chu Hen's eyelids twitched, and an invisible wave of energy surged out. His pitch-black eyes immediately turned a demonic purple. The power of his demonic eyes was quietly unleashed. In the next moment, in the dark area several hundred meters ahead of him, a blurry figure appeared under Chu Hen's demonic eyes. Chapter 745. So it was hidden there. An indifferent mocking voice came out from Chu Hen's mouth. Under the probing of the power of the demon eye, the other party had nowhere to hide. Looking at the hazy figure in the area shrouded in darkness for several hundred meters, Chu Hen suddenly raised his hand and flipped it. An extremely dense purple light burst out from between his hands. The dazzling light caused everyone to squint their eyes involuntarily. Amidst the radiant sun-like purple brilliance, there was a scroll-like object that was being flipped open in his palm. Buzz! Immediately after, a golden pillar of light pierced through the sky in front of Chu Hen. The world spun and the space trembled. Roar! Accompanied by a deafening roar of a ferocious beast, a domineering colossus shockingly appeared in the dark cage. The earth-shattering aura of the beast emperor shocked everyone. It was a violent earth bear king that was hundreds of meters tall. This is... Everyone who witnessed this was completely astounded. Where did this violent earth bear king come from? Illusion. That's right. I remember that Chu Hen also mastered some kind of illusion in the past. Without giving anyone time to think, the ferocious, violent Earth Bear King directly burst out with a majestic aura that was comparable to a mountain and charged toward the area where Helion-jong was. Roar! A dazzling golden light burst out from its body, and the darkness in the area in front was expelled. Under the illumination of the strong light, Helion-jong, who was hidden in the darkness, was faintly visible to everyone. He was hiding there. Faced with the menacing, violent Earth Bear King, Helion-jong's face revealed a dense disdain. He lifted his eyes, crossed his hands to form a seal, and cried out in a stern voice, "Stinking brat, you're still too inexperienced to use an illusion in front of me." A vigorous and powerful wave of air spread out from Helion-jong's body. Illusion, dispel. Dispel. The thunderous momentum surged abnormally. Vast and mighty white light patterns swept out with Helion-jong as the center. Moreover, they gushed towards the body of the violent Earth Bear King. However, the scene that everyone expected to see the illusion unravel did not appear. As soon as the white halo touched the Earth Raging Bear King's body, it immediately shattered. It didn't even cause the slightest bit of damage to the Bear King. What? Helion-jong's expression changed abruptly. He was greatly shocked in his heart, and unprecedented panic and disbelief surged into his round eyes. This is not an illusion. Roar! Before Helion-jong could finish his words, the violent Earth Bear King's huge palm, which was as big as a house or palace, whizzed toward him. The dazzling golden light completely covered the Earth Violent Bear King's huge palm, as if it was gathering the power of the sun's divine radiance. Hiss! An incomparably dull explosion exploded between the heavens and the earth. Everyone's hearts could not help but tremble violently. The huge golden bear paw firmly slammed into Helion-jong's tiny body with the force of a thunderbolt. Under the terrifying pressure, the golden bear paw forcefully blasted Helion-jong out of the cage of darkness. Then it heavily slammed into a mountain ridge in the region below. Boom! The abnormally violent destructive force caused the mountains to collapse and the ground to crack. The mountain ridge was flattened into ruins. A vast and surging wave swept out along the ground. Rocks collapsed and flew everywhere. The mountain ridge caved in deeply, and the surrounding mountain ridges were flattened into ruins. Countless deep cracks spread out along the mountain walls, forming many faults in the ground. The appearance of this scene caused everyone present to tremble with fear, especially the people from the Illusory Rain sect. They were so frightened that their faces turned ashen. Bang! With a loud bang, the illusory space that trapped Chu-hen exploded like a burst bubble. A golden pillar of light shot into the sky once again, disappearing along with the cage of darkness and the violent Earth Bear King. Illusory space? Or was it real? This time, everyone was even more confused. Even Qi-zhang, Dan-zhen, Mu-feng, and the others were slightly stunned. No one dared to confirm whether the powerful attack on Helion-jong originated from an illusory technique or some other secret technique. Chaotic rain flew, and light patterns flew everywhere. Chu-hen stood in the sky, like a monarch that controlled the world. The aura he emitted gradually retracted, and his eyes had long returned to their original, pitch-black luster. To outsiders, what happened just now was both real and fake. They could not see through it at all. Who knew that after Chu-hen found Helion-jong's hiding place, he immediately used the revolving myriad beast picture to summon a level 5 beast emperor, the violent Earth Bear King. After the successful attack, Chu-hen teleported his opponent back at lightning speed. The series of transformations could be said to be as smooth as flowing water. It was completed very smoothly. The battle was completed in an instant without anyone noticing. Even if it was over, no one could see through Chu-hen's methods. Under the tumbling rubble, in the huge crater, Helion-jong's clothes were tattered and his body was covered in blood. He lay on the ground like a beggar. The violent Earth Bear King's full-strength palm strike had directly shattered many of his opponent's bones and meridians. His internal organs had also suffered varying degrees of damage. Lost. He really lost. There was no hope of turning the tables. Helian-Jong trembled as he raised his head to look at the young figure standing proudly in the sky. His eyes were filled with a dense and complicated look. "I need one thing," Chu Hen said with an indifferent expression. Helian-Jong's face showed a hint of surprise. That thing was stolen from the Seven Souls Nation back then. Stolen from the Seven Souls Nation? There was only one possibility. Astral Soul Pearl. Helian-Jong's lips moved slightly. Then he took out a storage ring with trembling hands and held it in his palm. Let go of the illusory rain sect's disciple. Helian-Jong murmured softly, as if he was begging Chu Hen. Just as he finished speaking, Helian-Jong raised his palm and used all the strength in his body to strike a broken mountain wall to the side. Boom! Rubble tumbled down. Rocks of all sizes directly smashed onto Helian-Jong's body, instantly burying him in the ground. Sect Master. All the illusory rain sect's disciples' eyes were about to pop out of their sockets. Every one of them was filled with deep sorrow. Looking at the scene before him, Chu Hen's eyes faintly trembled. He could not help but feel touched. It had to be said that Helian-Jong was a person worthy of respect. In this way, he preserved the last shred of dignity of the illusory rain sect's sect master. Swoosh! Following that, a gentle white speck of light flew out from the stone crevice where Helian-Jong was buried and landed on Chu Hen's palm. After so many years, he had finally obtained his second astral soul pearl. With Helian-Jong's death, the last line of defense in the hearts of the illusory rain sect completely collapsed. The Shura sect and the otherworldly spirit sect also showed signs of irreversible defeat. At this moment, Flying Snow Palace and Lien Zhao were both anxious. Chapter 746. With Helian-Jong's death, the illusory rain sect's last line of defense crumbled. The Heavenly Sword Pavilion, the General's Alliance, and the Thousand Crane sect were unstoppable as they slaughtered their enemies and forced them to retreat. Seeing that the Cloud Luo Gorge was about to be breached, the Azura sect's sect master Lian Qi and the otherworldly spirit sect's sect master Shui Gong's minds were in chaos. The two of them were both shocked and furious. It's time to end this. Mu Feng's eyes emitted a chilling glint as an endless, baleful aura burst out from his body. He raised the Buddha demonic sword, and the demonic sword, which was emitting a dazzling blue light, slashed towards the Flying Snow Palace. Shui Fei Gong's expression changed, and he struck out several powerful palm energies in succession to meet the incoming attack. Bang! Sword and palm collided, sending shockwaves into the sky. The surging power was like two torrents colliding, causing space to violently tremble. Shui Gong was forced back by Mu Feng's attack. Buzz! Buzz! Immediately after, Mu Feng's figure moved and the demonic sword in his hand was raised once again. A peerlessly powerful sword aura was released from the Buddha demonic sword. It was like a huge chain as it swiftly wrapped around the sword pagoda that was emitting a desolate aura in the rear region. Huh! Mu Feng roared as the veins on his arm bulged. The powerful sword aura dragged the ancient pagoda and smashed it toward Shui Gong. The 1,000-meter-tall ancient pagoda was like a moving mountain as it tore through the sky. It exploded with a powerful force as it smashed toward Shui Gong. Shui Gong's face changed as he released the power of the 5th rank of the Earth Profound Realm without holding back. He pushed his palms forward, and a torrent of shock waves surged forward. Break! Hiss! Space trembled as the collision between mountains and tsunami shook. A power comparable to that of a mountain and a tsunami immediately exploded high up in the sky, along with a raging wave of true essence. Under the astonished gazes of everyone present, the ancient sword pagoda actually burst apart, turning into endless blue light and shadows. The surging blue light was like an earth-shattering tide, covering heaven and earth. Just at this moment, Mu Feng suddenly charged into the blue light. He quickly brandished the Buddha demon's sword in his hand. In an instant, all of the blue light that filled the world gathered around Mu Feng. Then they transformed into a vigorous cyclone that lingered around Mu Feng's body and rapidly rotated. Each of the blue cyclones was as powerful as the sharpest and most powerful energy swords. Thousands upon thousands of sword energies circling around Mu Feng were like a tornado that was expanding endlessly. They stirred up the world and tore the air apart as they charged toward Drifting Snow Palace. Spiral Sky Demon Slash. An unstoppable force whistled through the air. Before Snowflying Palace could even react, the powerful demonic whirlpool vortex had already arrived in front of him. The rapidly churning blue energy swords launched wave after wave of violent attacks. Drifting Snow Palace felt as if he was in the middle of a giant tornado. The powerful energy swords tore at his body from all directions. His genuine defenses were swiftly shattered, and the blue cyclones tore at his flesh and skin. The intense pain caused Drifting Snow Palace to let out an incomparably panicked roar. In an instant, Drifting Snow Palace was already covered in wounds, and scarlet blood spurted out from his body. Slash! Slash, along with Mu Feng's explosive shout, a sword ray with an extremely powerful aura traversed the sky. It was as if it was a fleeting image of 1,000 years of time. Xue Fei Gong's pupils violently shrank, and an endless amount of fear instantly filled his entire face. Hiss! In the next instant, the peerlessly powerful sword ray pierced right through Drifting Snow Palace's body. His body was immediately torn to pieces, and his body exploded in the air. What? After Hellion Zhong, Drifting Snow Palace was once again killed on the spot. Everyone in the room felt a chill run down their spines. Sect leader! The few remaining survivors of the otherworldly spirit sect were so furious that their eyes were about to pop out of their sockets. Their faces were deathly pale from shock. Bang! True Yuan surged, and a blood-red light and a golden sacred radiance rippled in another part of the world. The two powerful figures retreated toward the back of the room. Qi Zhang, the sect leader of the Thousand Crane sect, had an imposing appearance as he stared coldly at the disheveled figure in front of him. Lian Xiao, you've already lost your momentum. Surrender. Surrender without a fight? Ridiculous. Lian Xiao's eyes were blood-red, and they were filled with deep hatred and resentment. Even if I die today, I'll drag someone down with me. Lian Xiao let out a fierce roar, and a monstrous blood qi erupted from his body like a mountain torrent. Rumble! A series of heavy noises rang out, and then, with Qi Zhang at the center, more than a dozen pillars of blood suddenly shot into the sky. Each of the blood pillars was more than 1,000 meters tall, and they exuded an aura that could pierce the heavens. Complicated and mysterious runes flickered on their surfaces. In just a second, the area where Qi Zhang was located was instantly reduced to the center of a violent storm. Exalted blood formation. Lian Zhao's aura soared into the heavens, and his violent aura made him seem like a fiend's. The dozen or so pillars of blood radiated red light, and an aura of death and destruction surged toward Qi Zhang. Humph, stubborn fool. Qi Zhang snorted coldly. Then a dazzling holy light erupted from his body like the sun. The golden vertical eye at the center of his forehead flickered with sacred light. Buzz! Buzz! As the space around Qi Zhang twisted and swayed, a rain of golden light and sacred light swirled around him. In the sky behind him, the world began to spiral, and then a giant vertical eye appeared before everyone's eyes. This vertical eye was 100 feet tall, like a blazing sun. Heaven eye? Qi Zhang exclaimed. Whoosh! As soon as he spoke, the giant vertical eye behind him blossomed with boundless light, causing the sky to dim and the earth to be dyed gold. Whoosh! In a flash, Qi Zhang's eyes narrowed, and a condensed silver beam of light shot out from the vertical eye at the center of his forehead. The peerlessly powerful beam of light was like a divine aurora, sweeping up endless murderous intent as it shot through the air. Thump! There was a loud explosion as the light of the heaven eye pierced through one of the pillars of blood in front of him. A chaotic mist of red light scattered in all directions. The silver light of the heaven eye didn't slow down. After piercing through the blood pillar, it once more attacked Lian Xiao. What? Lian Xiao turned pale with fright. Her pupils, which had shrunk to the size of a needle tip, were filled with panic. The aurora arrived in the blink of an eye. In the next instant, the silver beam of light struck Lian Kuo's chest like a sharp sword, penetrating his body and cutting through his front and back. Bang! Blood sprayed through the air, and dust filled the air. Chapter 747. Bang! A string of blood splattered through the air, an exceptionally glaring sight to behold. The light of heaven's eye that Qi Zhang had unleashed was like a divine sword that had descended from the heavens, piercing through Lian Zhao's chest. At this moment, the Azura sect members who had been bitterly resisting all stared with wide eyes. Their bodies and minds had received an unprecedented blow. How could this be? Lian Zhao's eyes widened as he stared at the expanding bloody hole in his chest. Endless disbelief appeared on his face. He had lost. He had lost to someone he had never wanted to lose to in his entire life. Boom! In the next instant, the dozen or so red blood pillars that surrounded Qi Zhang were shattered by a majestic and terrifying impact, and they exploded into chaotic balls of light that filled the sky. It's over. Qi Zhang stared at Lian Xiao in front of him, his clothes fluttering in the wind as waves of energy surged around him. The deaths of Helian Zhong and Snowflying Palace had thrown Lian Zhao's mind into chaos, and the moment he lost his composure, it immediately announced his defeat. Lian Zhao's aura rapidly receded, rapidly weakening. He was like a bird with broken wings, fluttering in the air. He had lost. He had completely lost. It was a crushing defeat. From this day forth, the Azura sect, Illusory Reign sect, and otherworldly spirit sect would no longer exist in the entire province. Sects that had existed for nearly 1,000 years had fallen at this moment. 2 years ago, the 3 great sects had attacked Heavenly Sword Pavilion. 2 years later, Heavenly Sword Pavilion had returned. Truly, the 6 paths of reincarnation, who would the heavens spare? Ah! Suddenly, Lian Zhao's eyes flashed with malevolence. He suddenly leaped into the air, pouncing at a young figure on the other side like a wild beast. It's all your fault. I'm going to tear you into 1,000 pieces, you little bastard. Everyone's heart skipped a beat. Lian Zhao's target was none other than Chu Hen. In his opinion, everything that had happened today was ruined by Chu Hen. It was his arrival that had directly led to the destruction of the 3 great sections. Lian Xiao was filled with hatred and resentment. What he needed to do now was to drag Chu Hen down with him before he died. However, Chu Hen's face was calm as he stood where he was. Within his indifferent gaze, there was not the slightest fluctuation of emotion. Roar! Just as Lian Xiao was less than 100 meters away from Chu Hen, a ferocious behemoth swooped down and pounced on Lian Xiao. The huge mouth full of sharp fangs opened and directly bit Lian Xiao. Lian Xiao turned pale with fright, roaring in anger and fear. No, bang! Shi Yan's evil dragon beast's incomparably terrifying bite force completely vented on Lian Zhao's body. Bang! A dull explosion sound resounded. In a flash, scarlet blood rained down from Shi Yan's evil dragon beast's sharp teeth. Pieces of flesh splashed everywhere. Boom! The successive unforeseen events caused everyone present to feel as if they had been struck by lightning. Helian Zhong, Flying Snow Palace, and now Purgatory, the leaders of the 3 sects, had all lost their lives in Cloud River Gorge. The tragic fate of Lian, how had impacted everyone present. Roar! standing in front of the domineering Sher Yan's evil dragon beast. The young figure seemed to be the king of this world. No one dared to challenge him. The huge beast danced up and down. Chu Hen stood proudly under the sky and waved his sleeve. Flatten the Shura sect! Flatten the Shura sect! Boom! Kill! The earth quaked, and the sky changed color. The General League, Thousand Crane Sect, and Heavenly Sword Pavilion were like ferocious beasts that had broken through a dam. They directly broke through the huge barrier of Cloud River Gorge and attacked the Shura sect with unstoppable force. Roar! Roar! Screech! The Scarlet Flame Tigers, armored earth dragons, tiger crocodiles, and other monstrous beasts quickly occupied the Shura sect's mountain gate. In the sky, the majestic giant eagle legion pierced through the sky, emitting a loud and clear might that shook the heavens. Kill! At this moment, the Shura sect, Illusory Rain sect, and Otherworldly Spirit sect were completely defeated. They had completely lost the ability to defend themselves. The Union of Generals didn't purposely slaughter the defeated soldiers, but there were still many who were trampled and killed by the demonic beast army. We surrender, but we beg for our lives. The situation was hopeless. There was no hope left. The disciples of the three sects stopped resisting and threw down the weapons in their hands. In the blink of an eye, the Shura sect's mountains and rivers were destroyed. The main peak was occupied, and the entire sect was filled with the troops of the General League, Heavenly Sword Pavilion, and Thousand Crane sect. With that, the curtains fell on the sect war. The three sects had achieved a complete victory. An hour later, the peak of the Shura sect's main peak was towering and steep. Standing there, one could see how small the surrounding mountains were. From today onward, the Shura sect, Illusory Rain sect, and Otherworldly Spirit sect will no longer exist in the 100 Kingdoms prefecture. Chu Hen looked at the vast mountains and rivers in front of him. From afar, the Cloud River Gorge was still covered in blood from the fierce battle. Corpses littered the ground, and blood dyed the gorge red. The three sects had suffered countless casualties. In comparison, the forces of the General League, Heavenly Sword Pavilion, and Thousand Crane sect were in a much better state, especially with the assistance of Hua, Shue's spirit coalescing Saint Energy art. Their casualties had been reduced to a minimum. Besides Huan Ju, Xiaorumen, and Cui Qi, Shue, he and many other top geniuses of the past hadn't made an appearance during the sect war. They must have gone to the Eastern Victory Prefecture's Taiching sect. I wonder how they'll feel when they learn of the destruction of the three sections. The Shura sect has finally been trampled underfoot. Qizhang seemed excited and emotional. The enmity between the Thousand Crane sect and the Shura sect that spanned hundreds of years had finally come to an end today. The one who had the last laugh was now standing here. Thank you. Mu Feng turned around and spoke solemnly. Chu Hen faintly smiled, patted the other party's shoulder, and said, "There's no need for such polite words between friends." Mu Feng nodded, and then he revealed a smile for the first time in 2 years. After that, he gazed at Haozi, who stood by Chu Hen's side. "Long time no see. You didn't even have the time to bid farewell to me when you left that day." "Yes." Haozi heaved a sigh of relief and shook his head with slight emotion. "I thought that I would be able to return to all of you very soon, but I never expected that I would be gone for 5 or 6 years." Only Chu Hen knew that Haozi had left with thief, rat god. Mu Feng had only found out about it after he heard about it. Now, the mouse that was often bossed around by others had also become an existence that countless people in the 100 Nations continent looked up to. Mu Feng, that frivolous idiot, had also transformed into a sword devil. There was no doubt that no one had experienced more than Chu Hen over the years. From the change of the Sacred Star dynasty to the rise of the General League today, it was true that the river flows east for 30 years, and then flows west for 30 years. Roar! At this moment, a mighty wave of air rushed toward them. The Yen evil dragon spread its wings and flew toward them. Everyone was slightly startled. Then the other party stretched its huge head toward Chu Hen and opened its huge mouth. A bright silver ball of light slid out from the gap between the Yen evil dragon's teeth. This is a star soul pearl. Chu Hen's eyes lit up. He raised his hand and caught the bright ball of light. Inside the gorgeous ball of light, there was a pattern of the Big Dipper. Without a doubt, it was a star soul pearl. It seemed that this star soul pearl had always been with Lian Kai. After the Yen evil dragon killed the other party, this star soul pearl also fell into the Yen evil dragon's mouth, including the one he snatched from Helian Zhong. Chu Hen now had 2 star soul pearls, including his own Dubhe star soul pearl. He had a total of 3. As for the last one, it was probably hidden in the otherworldly spirit sect. He should be able to find it after this. Chapter 748. In the next 1 or 2 months, the entire 100 Kingdoms continent experienced an unprecedented upheaval. The news of the destruction of the Azura sect, Illusory Rain sect, and Otherworldly Spirit sect swept through the entire continent like a storm. The various factions and dynasties were shocked when they heard the news. The 3 sects were deeply rooted in the continent and had a long history. In the eyes of countless people, they were unshakable existences. Who would have thought that they would suffer such heavy losses in just a few days? Anyone who heard the news felt as if they had been struck by lightning. Soon, the General Alliance replaced all the territories under the Otherworldly Spirit sect. The Sky Sword Pavilion took over the resources of the Illusory Rain sect, and the Thousand Crane sect took over the Azura sect. In less than 2 months, the 3 major sects were divided by the 3 forces. From that day onwards, the 100 Nations continent welcomed the alliance of the General Alliance, the Thousand Crane sect, and the Sky Sword Pavilion. The alliance of these 3 factions was unshakable in the prefecture region. The General Alliance. In the capital, Chu Hen, the Tian Luo dynasty, Flame Shadow dynasty, and the Sword dynasty have sent a letter of alliance. The 3 sovereigns have expressed their willingness to join our General Alliance for all eternity. Su Yurong found Chu Hen on top of the General Alliance's city wall and brought him this news. However, Chu Hen only smiled faintly. He did not show much emotion. This matter was already within his expectations. To be honest, Chu Hen did not think much of the choice of the 3 sovereigns. The reason they had been hesitant to make a decision was because they were worried that the 3 sects would one day eradicate the General Alliance. Now that the outcome was the opposite, they naturally sent someone to deliver the letter of alliance. Compared to the Misty Wind dynasty and the Boulder dynasty, when the General Alliance was first established, these 2 sovereigns were more worthy of befriending. I understand. Sister-in-law, you can handle this matter yourself. There's no need to ask me. Su Yurong was more experienced than him in managing the internal and external affairs of the General Union, so Chu Hen was at ease leaving this matter to her. Su Yurong nodded. Then her eyes couldn't help but light up. Looking at the 4 silver spheres in Chu Hen's palm, she said, Isn't this the 7 souls' ancient kingdom's treasure, the Star Soul Pearl? Sister-in-law, you have a good eye. Chu Hen nodded with a smile. Have you collected all 4? Su Yurong could not help but feel a little astonished. As the overlord of the prefecture region in the past, everyone in the 7 spirits country knew about the 7 sacred artifacts, the Star Soul Pearl. During the battle at Cloud Luo Gorge, Chu Hen had obtained the Fecta Star Soul Pearl from Helian Zhong and the Kaiyang Star Soul Pearl from Refiner Puppet. Later on, when he was raiding the Otherworldly Spirit sect, he found the Migrez Star Soul Pearl. In addition to the Dubhe Star Soul Pearl in Chu Hen's hands, he had obtained a total of 4. The remaining 3 were in the hands of the Heavenly Cloud Manor, the Immortal Pavilion, and the 7 Souls Palace. The Star Soul Pearl's power was accumulated by stacking them together. A single Star Soul Pearl's power was limited and not particularly strong. However, if several Star Soul Pearls were to be gathered together, then the power that would erupt forth would definitely be multiplied. This was the result of Chu Hen's research. Refiner Puppet, Hellion Zhong, and the Flying Snow Palace were most likely unaware of this matter. Otherwise, if they had used the power of 3 Star Soul Pearls to launch a joint attack, Chu Hen might not have one so easily. Have you finished reorganizing the otherworldly spirit sect? Chu Hen asked casually. Almost, Su Yurong replied. In the 100 Nations continent, there are many clans and forces that relied on the otherworldly spirit sect, the Shura sect, and the Illusory Reigns sect to survive. Once the 3 sects were destroyed, the monkeys would scatter when the tree falls. Without a leader, many places would fall into chaos. In order to prevent the chaos from spreading, the Alliance of Generals worked together with the Celestial Sword Pavilion and the Thousand Cranes sect to seize control of the resources of the sections. At the same time, they also took control of the cities in the regions. To put it simply, the otherworldly spirit sect had become a branch of the Alliance of Generals. Hearing Chu Hen's question, Su Yurong guessed that he was most likely preparing to return to the victorious East Prefecture. In less than 2 months, the ancient desolate heaven region would open. Chu Hen had to return to Mount Kunliu as soon as possible to make preparations. Most of the things that needed to be done were done. A few days ago, Chu Hen made some time to pay a visit to the Luo clan in Grand Firmament City. He met with Luo Mingchang's adoptive father, Luo Qiong, and informed him that Luo Mengchang had found the mysterious person who sent her to the Luo clan back then. He was currently cultivating outside and would return to visit him in the future. Luo Qiong sighed deeply upon hearing this. While he was moved, he was also happy that Luo Mengchang had learned of her origins. Chu Hen stayed in the Luo clan for a day. Before he left, he provided the Luo clan with a lot of pills, sage artifacts, sage armor, and other resources. It could be said that he was doing his filial duty to Luo Mengchang. As for Yi Yao, Chu Hen also sent someone to the Yi clan to inform the head of the Yi clan that he already had news of Yi Yao's whereabouts. He told them not to worry and that he would find Yi Yao. Apart from that, Chu Hen did not reveal any other information. After all, the fewer people who knew about Yi Yao and the Valley of Innocence, the better. His return this time could be considered to have completely resolved one of Chu Hen's worries. The 3 major sects, which were a potential threat, had been eliminated. Now that the Alliance, the Heavenly Sword Pavilion, and the Thousand Cranes sect had formed an alliance, they were definitely invincible in the prefecture. Even if Chu Hen was far away in the victorious East Prefecture and had entered the ancient desolate heaven region, there was no need to worry. Alliance Master. At this moment, Qi Wanli hurriedly ran over and said, Sect Master Qi Zhang and Pavilion Master Mu Feng are here. Oh! Chu Hen raised his eyebrows. I was just about to go and find them. They came at the right time. Then Chu Hen, Su Yurong, and Qi Wanli walked down the city gate tower and arrived at the guest hall in the front yard. In the hall, Qi Zhang, Mu Feng, Haozi, Huashuet, and Shanzhen were all there. When they saw Chu Hen and the others, they all looked over. You guys came at the right time. I was just about to go and find you. Chu Hen walked in and smiled. Oh, Mu Feng was slightly surprised. You're going back to Mount Kunliu, right? Qi Zhang immediately understood. Chu Hen nodded. The ancient desolate heaven region is about to open. We have to go back and prepare as soon as possible. But if the 2 of you are willing, you can come with me to Mount Kunliu. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone present was shocked. Qi Zhang subconsciously clenched his fists, and his eyes flashed with excitement. There was no one who did not desire the ancient, desolate heaven region. It opened once every 1,000 years, and the ancient, desolate heaven region was something everyone yearned for. But we're not from Mount Kunliu. I'm afraid it's not appropriate. Mu Feng said in a low voice. That's fine. Shanzhen walked forward and raised her head slightly. She said in a clear voice, Chu Hen and I have obtained the highest grade of Mount Kunliu, the Black Token. We have the authority to recruit disciples from outside Mount Kunliu. Everyone's eyes lit up. Previously, Chu Hen completed a sum of 55 billion in the 100 Treasure Tower. The sect's contribution points directly reached 10 million points, and he also obtained the Black Token. As the highest grade Black Token, it had many privileges in Mount Kunliu. One of them was to recruit disciples from outside Mount Kunliu. Once one became a disciple of Mount Kunliu, he had the authority to enter the ancient Desolate Heaven region through the sect's channels. However, before that, I'd like to say something. Dan Zhen glanced at Chu Hen as her tone became more solemn. Although everyone wants to go to the ancient Desolate Heaven domain, it's not a good place. Opportunities and dangers exist side by side. I believe that the two of you should be clear on this point. Whether or not you want to go, please consider it carefully. The meaning of Dan Zhen's words was very clear. Mount Kunliu could provide the quota. After entering the ancient Desolate Heaven region, life and death, fortune and danger would coexist. No one could guarantee that they would not encounter any unexpected situations. Moreover, it was unknown if they would even lose their lives. Therefore, Shan Zhen spoke her mind first. Chu Hen nodded slightly, indicating that Shan Zhen was right. It was because there were many dangers in the ancient Desolate Heaven region that Chu Hen only considered Qizhang and Mu Feng. Otherwise, Chu Hen could choose a group of people from the Alliance of Generals to go together. However, after 8 months of fighting for the Heaven and Earth Mystic Yellow Token, Chu Hen knew how complicated the situation in the Victory East Province was. Even he did not have much confidence that he would be able to gain an advantage in the ancient Desolate Heaven region. There was no way he could lead the Alliance of Generals to search for opportunities. Only Mu Feng and Qizhang could make Chu Hen feel more at ease. I'll go. Mu Feng agreed without hesitation. Qizhang also agreed without hesitation. I'm willing to go as well. It could be seen that Qizhang yearned for the ancient Desolate Heaven region. Even though he was one of the most powerful figures in the 100 Kingdoms region, he knew that the 1,000 Crane sect was nothing compared to the Victory East Province. Qizhang had always yearned for an opportunity. Now, this opportunity was right in front of him. Even if he died in the ancient Desolate Heaven region, Qizhang would not regret it. His cultivation had been stuck at this level for many years, and if he wanted to break through again, he would have to ascend to a higher realm. As for Mu Feng, he had gotten his revenge, and the Sky Sword Pavilion had returned to its previous stability. As someone who possessed the Sword Demon Xian physique, how could he be willing to stay in such a small place? Chu Hen nodded his head. That's good. Return to the 1,000 Crane sect and Sky Sword Pavilion and report to them. I'll give the orders to the Alliance of Generals as well. The 3 powers will support each other, and we'll do our best to help each other no matter what happens. Yes. Mu Feng and Qizhang nodded solemnly. Chapter 749. Heavenly Sword Pavilion. After 2 years of silence, the entire Sword Pavilion was once again filled with vitality. Many young male and female disciples were flying on their swords in the various cultivation grounds. They were either sparring or exchanging sword skills. Compared to when Mu Xiongzai was in charge of the Sword Pavilion, it was much livelier. After walking across the long bridge made of metal chains, Mu Feng arrived at a secluded mountain. The mountain was extremely quiet and there were not many people around. There was a tall tower built at the peak of the mountain. The tower was quite old and looked old and shabby. On the square outside the gate of the ancient pagoda, a hunchbacked, white-haired old man was sweeping the fallen leaves and dust on the ground. The old man's footsteps were unsteady, and it was difficult for him to sweep the ground. He looked like a candle in the wind and was about to run out of oil. Hearing the approaching footsteps, the old man stopped what he was doing. He slowly raised his head and looked at Mu Feng, who was walking over. Many complicated emotions surged within his pair of turbid old eyes. You look so old. If you can't sweep, then don't sweep. Can't you just sit still? Mu Feng said indifferently. His voice was very calm. The old man did not speak and lowered his head to sweep the ground again. Mu Feng shrugged and smiled helplessly. I'm going to the Eastern Victory Province, the ancient desolate heaven territory that only happens once every 1,000 years is about to open. I want to join in the fun. The old man paused for a moment but continued to do what he was doing. You have to hold on until I come back. Don't die the moment I leave. I might be able to find a way to restore your youth in the ancient, desolate heaven territory. Mu Feng said. The person in front of him was none other than the previous sect master of the Heavenly Sword Pavilion, Mu Feng's father, Mu Xiongkai. In the battle 2 years ago, Mu Xiongkai burned his origin of life and forcefully executed the Great Pagoda Devil slaughtering technique in order to defend against the joint attack of the 3 sections. Everyone thought that Mu Xiongkai died in the battle, but that was not the case. However, even though Mu Xiong managed to preserve his life force was almost depleted, making him look like an old man in his twilight years. I have taken care of all the matters in the Heavenly Sword Pavilion. During my absence, your illegitimate son, Jianaonan, will temporarily take over the position of Pavilion Master, although I do not know if he is your illegitimate son or not. After saying that, Mu Feng turned around. From the corner of his eyes, he could not bear to look at the frail body of the other party and softly said, I'm leaving. Father, father. These 2 words had not come out of Mu Feng's mouth for many years. It was as if a stone had been thrown into the calm surface of the water, causing faint ripples to appear. Just as Mu Feng was about 10 steps away, the old but concerned voice came from behind. Take care of yourself. In an instant, Mu Feng's body couldn't help but stop. His legs felt like they were filled with lead and were abnormally heavy. His eyes reddened and he clenched his fists. Then he hurriedly left without looking back. Mu Xiongkai watched as the other person disappeared at the end of the bridge. Under the ancient pagoda, the hunchbacked figure seemed even more frail. However, there was clearly a hint of concern and love in those muddy eyes. Mo City. According to the time that Chu Hen had agreed on, Mu Feng and Qi Zhang arrived at the Mo City Lord's residence to meet up with Chu Hen, Dan Zhen, and the others. My lords, are you not going to stay in the city for a few more days? This old man will be able to welcome you all to my humble abode. City Lord Mo Ping was still the same as the day he arrived. He wanted to get closer to the others. Naturally, the answer he received was a refusal. Dan Zhen had no time to bother with them. However, due to their enthusiasm, she rewarded them with a few more pills. Then, under the endless gratitude of the people in the Mo City Lord's residence, she activated the teleportation array and returned to Mount Kunliu. Mount Kunliu. The sky was high and the clouds were light. The majestic mountain peak pierced through the clouds, looking like a divine pillar that supported the heavens. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth, which was many times denser than that of the 100 kingdoms, lingered around the mountain range. It was like a golden spiritual fog, beautiful like a painting, like a dangerous place. Is this Mount Kunliu? It really lives up to its reputation. Qi Zhang gazed at the beautiful scenery in the distance with a look of awe on his face. Mu Feng's eyes were also filled with amazement. The power of this Mount Kunliu was majestic, far beyond that of the Heavenly Sword Pavilion. Looking at the majestic mountain gate, one could not help but feel a sense of disparity. Danjin smiled and said, Later, let Hua Shui and the others take you around to familiarize you with the environment of Mount Kunliu. No problem, Hua Shui agreed readily. Chu Hen smiled and shook his head. This girl was really enthusiastic. He then asked, Senior Brother Dan, do you need to inform the Fairy Hall Master about this? Leave it to me. Dan Zhen raised her head and answered. Okay, thank you. You're welcome. Shortly after, everyone returned to their residences. Dan Zhen also arranged a place for Mu Feng and Qi Zhang to stay. It was next to Chu Hen and Hao Zi's residences in the West Wing. Chu Hen, Hao Zi, Qi Ting, and Lu Qi were no different from the other disciples of Mount Kunliu. Chu Hen could request to have his own independent mountain to stay in. However, the ancient desolate heaven region was about to open, so it did not matter where he stayed. It was fine to stay in the guest house, temporarily. "So many things have happened to you in the past 2 years." Sitting in the hall, Mu Feng looked at Chu Hen and said meaningfully, "Yes." Chu Hen let out a long breath. "But it is not easy to be the sect master of Mount Kunliu." Mu Feng laughed. Mount Kunliu was so big, it was easy to imagine how difficult it was to be the sect master. Even so, Chu Hen's ability was still admirable. After chatting for a while, they returned to their rooms to rest. Chu Hen, who was sitting on the bed, felt much more relaxed. He had almost finished all the things he needed to do after returning to the 100 Kingdom state. Now, he could devote himself to preparing for the ancient, desolate heaven region. Phew! After Chu Hen let out a deep breath, he moved his palm and took out an exquisite, transparent glass bottle. Within the small bottle, there was a trickle of golden spiritual liquid. Tree, soul heaven nourishing liquid. This was what Hua Shui had snatched from 8th Elder when they were buying elixirs. It was a natural treasure that had the main effect on the street tree, Reiki energy. Chapter 750. As the gate of the ancient desolation heaven realm was about to open, Mount Kunliu and even the entire Dongxing province were stirred up. Experts from various sects, forces, and clans were all preparing for the trip to the ancient desolation heaven realm. Under the expectations of the crowd, this day arrived as promised. Boom! Many disciples of Mount Kunliu had already gathered on the flying immortal peak before the sky was completely bright, accompanied by a bustling and majestic atmosphere of jubilation. Almost all of their faces were surging with unconcealable fervor and hope. Ancient desolation heaven realm. Gluttony feast. West guest house. Suddenly, an especially vigorous spiritual power surged out from a certain room. The expressions of Mu Feng, Hao Zi, Shan Zhan, and the others, who were waiting outside the guest courtyard, changed slightly. Each and every one of them revealed astonished expressions. What a powerful Reiki energy! Qi Zhang, the master of Thousand Crane sect, raised his eyebrows and said in surprise, "It seems that he has reached the later stage of spiritual tattooist. This guy really doesn't want to leave anything behind." Dan Zhen nodded with a smile. "You have to thank me," Hua Shui said in a hurry to take credit. She snatched the tree soul heaven nourishing liquid from the 8th Elder. If it wasn't for Hua Shui, Chu Hen wouldn't have known that there was such a thing in the world. Compared to Chu Hen's martial arts realm, the Reiki energy needed to be strengthened. Very quickly, the powerful aura coming from the other side gradually retracted. Then, the door that had been closed for more than a month opened, and a high-spirited young man with an extraordinary bearing walked out. His handsome face exuded an aura that made people look up to him. Looking at the crowd outside, Chu Hen smiled. "Let's go." After a while, Chu Hen, Mu Feng, Dan Zhen, and the others arrived at the fairy peak. At this moment, the entire flying immortal peak was filled with people. Many disciples of the Kunliu Gate had gathered on the plaza of the flying immortal peak. Seeing Chu Hen and the others arrive, everyone looked at them strangely. On the other hand, Nan Gonghao of the Demon Slayer Palace and Lung Lingyan of the Void Palace had a hint of indifference in their eyes. "Do you have a grudge against that guy?" Mu Feng pointed at Nan Gongju and said casually, "The moment he saw you, his hostility rose." Chu Hen smiled but didn't say anything. He just shook his head and didn't say anything. However, he was still a little surprised by Mu Feng's perception ability. After awakening the sword demon mystic body, Mu Feng's strength in all aspects had been perfected and strengthened. Buzz! At this moment, 3 dazzling silver light pillars descended from the sky like lightning, steadily landing on the stone platform in the middle of the square. A circle of surging air waves spread out in all directions like a tide. Everyone on the square retreated without exception. Soon after, the 3 pillars of light quickly converged downwards and turned into 3 powerful figures with extraordinary auras and majestic auras. "Greetings, 3 palace masters!" Everyone present bowed and saluted with reverence on their faces. "Forget it!" The demon slayer palace master, Wen Liang, waved his hand. His voice was like thunder, powerful and resonant. "Thank you, palace master." The palace master of the Flying Immortal Temple, Qi Hanyu, subconsciously glanced at where Chu Hen and the others were. When she saw Mu Feng and Qi Zhang beside Chu Hen, she couldn't help but show a hint of surprise on her face. Previously, Dan Zhen had already reported to her that Chu Hen had recruited 2 outsiders from the 100 Kingdoms prefecture to enter the Kunliu mountain. At that time, she didn't pay much attention to it. Now that she saw it, Mu Feng and Qi Zhang were 2 talents. This was especially true for Mu Feng. The aura that was faintly emitted from his body caused Qi Hanyu to feel a slight chill. What a powerful, profound physique bloodline limit. Qi Hanyu murmured in her heart. This kid's future achievements definitely wouldn't be too low. This trip to the ancient, desolate heaven domain will be led by me and the palace master of the Flying Immortal Temple. A thunderous voice echoed from the palace master of the Flying Immortal Temple, Wen Liang. The moment he said that, the entire square couldn't help but burst into an uproar. For 2 palace masters to personally lead the team, this was really a big move. Even Chu Hen was surprised. He originally thought that only 1 palace master would lead the team. He didn't expect 2 palace masters to lead the team. One could imagine how much importance they placed on the ancient, desolate heaven domain, with Wen Liang and Qi Hanyu leading the team. This meant that the palace master of the Void Palace, Xia Wuha, would stay in the sect. Xia Wuha's expression looked very calm, without much fluctuation. It seemed that the 3 of them had already gone through a strict discussion. The 3 palace masters were actually very clear that the ancient, desolate heaven domain was filled with opportunities and dangers. Not many people could say that they would be able to come and go as they pleased in the ancient, desolate heaven domain. Apart from their own desire for the ancient desolation heaven domain, the 2 palace masters were also here to ensure the safety of the genius disciples. According to their original plan, it wasn't impossible for the 3 palace masters to come together. But on second thought, if they didn't leave a hall master here to hold down the fort, if their enemies were to take advantage of this time to attack the mountain gate, their nest would probably be destroyed. Since ancient times, the victorious East State didn't lack such precedents. Of course, there was another point. If an unimaginable accident happened to the team heading to the ancient, desolate heaven domain, then the palace master of the Void Palace would be in charge. At that time, Xia Wuha would be the palace master of Mount Kunlu, other than the palace master of the Void Palace staying in Mount Kunlu. Not all the disciples could head to the ancient, desolate heaven domain. Although a complete set of 4 heaven and earth black yellow tokens could allow the entire sect to enter the heaven domain, those with weak cultivation would only be a burden if they entered the heaven domain. After a few months of selection, Mount Kunlu finally selected over 1,000 elite disciples to form the strongest team, the Kunlu team, to head to the ancient desolate heaven domain. Is there anything you want to say? Qi Hanyu turned around and looked at Xia Wuha. Xia Wuha smiled faintly and replied without any hesitation. I hope that all the juniors will return. As for the 2 of you, forget it. Humph. Wen Liang snorted coldly. Your wishful thinking is really good. Once the 2 of us die, Mount Kunlu will be yours. That's right. That's exactly what I wanted. Ha ha. Xia Wuha laughed. Qi Hanyu smiled and shook her head. There was a complicated look in her eyes as she said softly, Xia Wuha, if I really can't return, please help me find Gong Yangyu. Qi Hanyu's words caused the surrounding to fall into silence. I don't have the time to help you find him. If you want to find him, come back and find him yourself. Wuha looked away as a disdainful sneer appeared on his face. All right, let's cut the nonsense. The Devil's Slaughter Palace master seemed to be in high spirits. He waved his hand and shouted, "The ancient desolate heaven domain is about to open. The 1,000 disciples from Mount Kunlu, please follow us. Mount Qingqing, depart. Mount Qingqing, rumble." In an instant, the entire Mount Kunlu was filled with a mighty aura. Over 1,000 elite disciples from Mount Kunlu soared into the sky and revealed their powerful auras. Roar! Subsequently, a few majestic, one-horned Pegasi galloped from the back of the flying celestial peak. These Pegasi were pulling 2 luxurious open carriages. The flying celestial palace master and the Devil's Slaughter Palace master turned into a ray of light and soared into the sky. They landed on the 2 carriages and sat on the wide chairs. "Let's go!" Soon after, the 2 hall masters gathered the strongest youths of Mount Kunlu and headed towards the direction of Mount Qingqing in a grandiose manner. "I'm looking forward to it." Chu Hen raised his brows as his eyes burned with passion. Mu Feng, Haozi, Qizhang, Shanzhen, Huashui, and the rest were also extremely excited. Now that they had made it to the ancient desolate heaven domain, it was easy to imagine how excited they were. "Let's go." Without much hesitation, the group flew into the sky and followed the huge group. Numerous swift and fierce figures streaked across the sky like incomparably sharp eagles. They blotted out the sky and covered the sun with an imposing manner that could topple mountains and overturn the seas. As for the disciples from Mount Kunlu, who were not fated to participate in the trip to the ancient desolate heaven domain, their eyes were filled with envy. The world had never been fair. Only strength could prove everything. Looking at the group that had turned into black dots in the sky, the Void Palace Master Xia Wuha placed his hands behind his back. His dignified eyes were filled with complicated emotions. Ancient desolate heaven domain, prefecture region war, gathering of heroes, 9 heavens dragon roar. Chapter 751. Qingqing Mountain. Qingqing Mountain was beautiful and enshrouded in spiritual mist. The undulating mountain range was like an ancient dragon in slumber. At this moment, the Qingqing Mountain was already crowded with people. The teams from various sects and forces were occupying a mountain peak. They were gathered here for no reason other than to wait for the door to the ancient desolation heaven domain to open. I've been waiting for this day. I'm so excited. What are you so excited for? With your cultivation base, you probably won't be able to return from the ancient desolation heaven domain. Screw you. Do you know how to talk? Who knows if I'll be lucky and discover a secret realm by accident. From then on, I'll be able to make a comeback. You won't get such a good opportunity. Although the atmosphere in the Qingqing Mountain was lively, the teams from the various sects did not bother with each other. They were only interacting with their own people. Not only that, but there seemed to be a sense of hostility between the various sects and clans. After all, once they entered the ancient desolation heaven domain, almost all the sects and clans would be competitors. Whoosh! Suddenly, a powerful wave of air swept in their direction. Everyone was slightly shocked as they raised their heads to look at the sky. They saw a few single-horned Pegasi that emitted a holy aura pulling 2 luxuriously dressed carriages. When the crowd clearly saw the 2 people in the carriage, they could not help but reveal some amazement on their faces. It's the flying celestial palace master and the Devil's Slaughter Palace master from Mount Kunlu. Mount Kunlu actually sent out 2 hall masters. What a surprise. It's normal. I'd think it's normal even if all 3 palace masters came. The ancient desolation heaven domain is so tempting. In fact, many sects have sent out their full strength. You're right. It seems like Mount Kunlu is being conservative. Whoosh! Amidst the clamorous discussions, the the team from Mount Kunliu landed on a relatively empty mountain peak. Similar to the other sects, Mount Kunliu did not greet or interact with any of the forces after they arrived. The other forces in the surroundings did not make any moves as well. They merely glanced around and did not do anything. "There's so many people here." Hua Shui scanned her surroundings. As far as her eyes could see, the mountains were filled with people. Moreover, there were many people with powerful auras hidden within this endless crowd. Chu Hen could even vaguely sense that there were a few people whose auras were no weaker than Qi Hanyu and Wen Liang, the two hall masters. It had to be said that the victorious East region was truly a place of crouching tigers and hidden dragons. For example, the sect master of the Thousand Crane sect, Qizhong. He was a top-rate expert in the 100 Kingdoms. Yet he was no different than a passerby when he stood amongst the group from Mount Kunliu. The difference between them was like heaven and earth. Do all the sects in the victorious East state head to the ancient, desolate heaven domain from here? It was Mu Feng who asked. No. Shan Jin shook her head and explained in a low voice, Qingqing Mountain is only one of the gates that have been opened. There are other passageways that have been opened in the other regions of the Dongxing state. Mu Feng nodded. After all, it was his first time in the victorious East state, so he did not know much about the geography of the region. The sects and forces in the victorious East state were divided according to their regions. At that time, the passageways that led to the ancient desolate heaven domain opened at the same time, and everyone was sent in together. Mount Kunliu was in the region where Qingqing Mountain was located, where are Innocence Valley and Taiqing sect. Chu Hen asked Shan Zhen in a low voice. Innocence Valley, where Yi Yao was the thing that Chu Hen was most worried about. It was also the most important task that he had to shoulder after entering the ancient, desolate heaven domain. As for Taiqing sect, Mentor Shilan and the top geniuses of the 100 Kingdoms were all recruited there. If things went well, it would be a fortuitous encounter. If things went badly, they would become Taiqing sect's cannon fodder. Especially since both Innocence Valley and Taiqing sect were among the top 10 forces in the victorious East state. If he wanted to deal with these two forces and sects, he would have to make all sorts of preparations. First of all, he had to find out where the two sects were. Naturally, Shan Zhen knew what Chu Hen was thinking. She looked around without batting an eyelid. Then, she shook her head and answered in a low voice, "They're not here. None of them are here. Honesty Valley is in the southwest of the province, so they should be in Flag Cloud City right now. Taiqing sect is in the southeast, near returning Eagle Gorge." After listening to her, Chu Hen could not help but shake his head. He had never even heard of these two places. As it turned out, his understanding of the victorious East state was only vague. "Don't be too anxious. Let's wait until we reach the ancient, desolate heaven domain," Shanjin said. "All right." Chu Hen heaved a sigh of relief. Now that it had come to this, he could only take one step at a time. He only hoped that Yi Yao could try her best to delay Shinta Tian until Chu Hen met up with her. As time passed, the number of teams that arrived at Qingcheng Mountain increased. Apart from the people from the major sects and clans, there were also many people from all walks of life. They were actually fighting for the heaven and earth black yellow tokens in the surrounding areas. The various forces only looked on coldly from the sidelines at such a scene that was neither big nor small. At a time like this, the only ones who were anxious were those who hadn't obtained the pass. Rumble. Suddenly, a thunderous might that shook the heavens exploded in the sky above Qingqing Mountain without any warning. In the next moment, the wind howled in all directions, and the sky darkened in an instant. Endless dark clouds covered the sky and covered the earth, covering the sky above Mount Qingqing. They slowly rotated and turned into an incomparably vast and mighty storm nebula. A powerful and terrifying aura gathered above everyone's heads, suppressing them to the point that they could hardly breathe. The storm nebula continued to expand in all directions. In the blink of an eye, it had expanded to thousands of feet wide. Subsequently, a myriad of golden rays of light blossomed from the center of the nebula vortex. It was as if a dazzling sun had spilled out from within it. Countless rays of dazzling divine golden light dyed the sky and illuminated the faces of everyone below, causing them to sparkle brilliantly under the scorching gazes of countless people. An incomparably huge scene gradually appeared in the sky. The magnificent scene was like a mirage. The world lost its color as if a miracle had descended. What appeared in front of everyone was a huge heaven-opening gate. The circular gate was covered in complicated and mysterious ancient numbers. The runes and numbers engraved on them were like interweaving silver vines of light, flickering with bright and mysterious patterns. This scene had happened a year ago as well. However, at this moment, everyone felt that it was extremely real. The dazzling gate was like a heavenly wheel that floated in the sky. When it opened, the ancient, desolate heaven territory would be reopened. The ancient, desolate heaven territory is finally here. At this moment, everyone stood up and clenched their fists tightly. Their expressions were all moved. Even the head of the flying immortal palace, Chi Hanyu, and the head of the demon-slaying palace, Wen Liang, could not help but stand up from the wide seats in the carriage. The two of them stared at the gate. They had been waiting for this day for a long time. Immediately after, the huge golden door that looked like a divine formation slowly rotated clockwise. The mysterious runes on it quickly lit up, releasing bright and beautiful light patterns. The world spun, and the sky was stirred. The gate to the ancient, desolate heaven territory is about to open. This is great. After waiting for so many years, this moment has finally arrived. Excitement, unprecedented excitement. Everyone's eyes seemed to be flickering with flames. They were so excited that their blood was boiling and their hearts were about to jump out of their bodies. Very soon, under countless excited gazes, the giant golden door slowly opened from the middle as it rotated, splitting into two. The way the golden gate opened was very strange. The middle of the gate was not vertical like normal gates. Instead, there was a lock at the top, bottom, left, and right. The two gates separated, and the gate to the ancient, desolate heaven territory opened. Along with the divine golden light, an ancient and desolate aura that seemed to have been sealed for countless years rushed out from the gap of the gate towards the people below. 10,000 rays of golden light poured down, and everyone in the Qingqing mountain felt as if they were bathed in the holy light. Swish, swish. Following that, dozens of figures with extraordinary auras flew out from behind the giant golden door. The aura released by these people was like an unshakable mountain. These people were all wearing sacred armor that flowed with silver light and held long spears in their hands. A few of them were even wearing golden sacred armor. They were majestic, and their auras were astonishing. They were like the legendary heavenly soldiers that guarded the heavenly palaces. Chapter 752. What's that? Looking at the dozens of powerful figures that flew out from behind the huge golden door, the faces of the various factions on Qingqing Mountain below revealed a lot of caution and faint reverence. These people were all wearing colorful sacred armors and holding long spears that were surrounded by powerful light runes. His grave and stern face, his sharp gaze, and the awe-inspiring aura he exuded were like the legendary heavenly soldiers and generals. Who are they? In the group on Kuin, Lu Mountain, Chu Hen's eyes narrowed slightly. He could not help but clench his fists. He suddenly recalled the scene a few months ago when he met Tuoba Shah and was chased by a powerful man in golden sacred armor. The aura of these people was very similar to the ones he met back then. They're the guardians of the ancient Desolation Heaven region, the Light Sacred Clan. Dan Zhen's voice rang in Chu Hen's ears. Heavenly Region Guardian? Light Sacred Clan? Chu Hen's heart involuntarily surged with a few simple words. The Sacred Clan. Just these two words were enough to make people revere them from the bottom of their hearts. Sacred Clan? Does their race inherit the bloodline limit of the sacred body? Mu Feng asked subconsciously. Dan Zhen nodded solemnly. A hint of reverence and passion faintly surged between her brows. That's right. The Light Sacred Clan is one of the most ancient clans in the Eastern continent. They're also the inheritors of the Saint bloodline limit. Dan Zhen's explanation was very vague. It was obvious that he did not know much about the so-called Heavenly Region Guardian. However, from his words, it was obvious that he was afraid of the Light Sacred Clan. The expression on Chu Hen's face became even more complicated and grim. If the people who took Tuoba Sha away were really from the Light Sacred Clan, then it would be really bad. At the same time, Chu Hen could not help but feel confused about the mysterious item in the metal box that Tuoba Sha had given him. What exactly was hidden in it? What would cause the Light Sacred Clan to attack Tuoba Sha? Sorry for the long wait. A slightly indifferent and calm voice came from the golden-armored, middle-aged man in the lead. His indifferent tone did not reveal any emotion, and his eyes were as calm as the water in an ancient well. My name is Luo Tong. I'm the person in charge of Azure City Mountain's Heavenly Territory Passage. I believe everyone has been waiting for this day for a long time. Hua! It was a simple sentence, but it was like a stone thrown into the water, causing ripples in everyone's hearts. Everyone's eyes were burning with passion. Seeing the changes in everyone's expressions, a frivolous smile rose from the corner of Luo Tung's mouth as he continued. Looks like everyone is a little impatient. That's right, the ancient, desolate Heaven Domain has a power that all of you yearn for. As the protector of the ancient, desolate Heaven Domain, I have to tell you that once you enter, none of you will be restricted. There wouldn't be any restrictions. This also meant that the various sects and families could do whatever they wanted in the ancient, desolate Heaven Domain. I won't waste any more words. Everyone knows the rules. Let's begin. Buzz. Buzz. As soon as he finished speaking, a strong spatial fluctuation appeared in the sky. The giant golden door released countless rays of gentle golden light. From afar, the giant door looked like a long and deep path leading to the heavens. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Following that, a team from a sect on a mountain soared into the sky. The size of this team was not any smaller than the team from Mount Kunlu. Moreover, the aura that the person in the lead emitted was not any weaker than the two palace masters from Mount Kunlu. Rin Jun from the soaring clouds pavilion greets Lord Luoteng. A middle-aged man who looked like he was in his 40s cupped his fists at Luoteng and presented 4 heaven and earth black yellow tokens with both hands. Luoteng moved his palm and casually took the 4 heaven and earth black yellow tokens into his hand. However, he merely glanced at them briefly. Pavilion Master Rinjun, how many people from the Soaring Clouds Pavilion are here? 1,200 people. The middle-aged man answered without hesitation. Is that so? Are you sure? I'm sure. Luoteng smiled and raised his eyelids. However, it seems like you have more than 1,200 people here. What? Everyone's heart skipped a beat. However, in the next instant, with a swoosh sound, along with a rapid wind-breaking momentum, a shadow of flowing light suddenly burst out from the Soaring Clouds Pavilion's team. Humph! I don't believe that I can't go to the ancient, desolate heaven domain without a heaven and earth black yellow token. The person was extremely fast. He left a series of after-images in the sky as he charged towards the gate of the ancient, desolate heaven domain like a ghost. However, when the person was less than 50 meters away from the giant golden door, a silver light shot across the sky and struck the person's body like a meteor. Bang! A heavy, muffled sound erupted in the sky as a powerful chi wave spread out in the sky, causing a rain of blood to splatter. Ah! A short and hurried, miserable shriek caused one's heart to tremble violently. That person's body directly shattered and exploded into a bloody mist. At the place where the person died, a guard in silver armor held a spear. His cold face gave off a dangerous aura. In the blink of an eye, blood was shed. In an instant, the expressions of the people from the soaring clouds pavilion changed drastically. Pavilion Master Rin Jun's face turned pale as he hurriedly said, "Lord Luo Tung, please calm down. We were careless. Please forgive us." Luo Tung continued to smile. He looked at the people from the various sects and said, "Looks like I have to repeat myself. No one is allowed to use the heaven and earth black yellow token as a pass. All sects are aware of their subordinates. If anyone tries to pass them off as genuine, the entire sect will be disqualified." Hiss! Although Luo Tung was smiling when he said this, everyone in the room felt a chill run down their spines. Immediately, the teams from the various forces and clans began to count the number of people in their sects in case someone with ill intentions mixed in with them. Their way of doing things was really swift and decisive. Seeing this, Chu Hen could not help but shake his head. The Light Sacred Clan was one of the most powerful clans in the Eastern Land. Indeed, they would not allow anyone to challenge their dignity. However, seeing that Luo Tung did not blame the Soaring Clouds Pavilion immediately, the people from the Pavilion Master Ren Jun heaved a sigh of relief. "Thank you, Lord Luo Tung. Let's go in." Luo Tung raised his hand slightly and made a gentle gesture of "please." Ren Jun's eyes lit up. After nodding and bowing, he took the lead and turned into a stream of light as he flew toward the giant golden door. The people from the Soaring Clouds Pavilion followed closely behind and flew toward the passage to the ancient desolation heaven domain like a flock of eagles. Buzz! Countless rays of dazzling golden light shone from behind the giant golden door. The people from the Soaring Clouds Pavilion seemed to have merged with the holy light of the divine sun. In an instant, they turned into black spots and disappeared from everyone's sight. Chapter 753. In the sky above the 9 heavens, the wind swirled around the clouds. The holy light emitted from the giant golden door was like the sun in the sky. The dazzling light inscriptions bathed the entire Qingqing Mountain in holy light. Under the passionate and excited gazes of the people from the various sects and forces, the Soaring Clouds Pavilion's team was the first to pass through the endless path behind the golden formation door and enter the ancient desolation, heaven territory. The Light Saint Clan's team was like the divine guards guarding the entrance of the heaven palace. They emitted a powerful aura that struck fear in the hearts of the people. Luo Tang looked at the people below and spoke in a light tone. Next, whoosh! As soon as he finished speaking, another team of more than 1,000 people soared into the sky, sweeping up a vast and mighty aura that surged into the sky. Lung Song from the Heavenly Sea sect greets everyone. Just like before, the leader of the team eagerly took out 4 heaven and earth black yellow tokens and handed them to Luo Tung. Luo Tung took them and asked sect leader Lung, "How many people from the Heavenly Sea sect are here?" Lung Song was stunned. The disciples behind him were also shocked. They looked at each other and their surroundings. When they saw no strangers had mixed into the team, Lung Song finally replied in a relaxed tone, 1,350 people. Luo Ting smiled. "Don't be nervous, sect leader Lung. I just want to make sure." Lung Song wiped the cold sweat off his forehead and cursed inwardly. "Damn it! How can I not be nervous? We might die if we're not careful. Please." Luo Tung raised his hand with a smile. Lung Song nodded and cupped his fists. Then he waved his hand and said, "Let's go." Whoosh! Whoosh! Subsequently, the Heavenly Sea Sect's team followed the Soaring Clouds Pavilion's team into the golden formation door and disappeared in the dazzling holy light. Soon after, powerful teams with extraordinary auras rose into the sky and handed over their heaven and earth black yellow tokens in an orderly manner. After that, Luo Tung did not ask about the number of people. But even so, Every sect and family would conduct a strict and thorough investigation before this to ensure that no one would come to make up the numbers. As the guardians of the ancient Desolation Heaven territory, everyone was in awe of the Light Saint clan. As time went by, the number of people in Mount Qingqing decreased at a speed visible to the naked eye. At the same time, many lone travelers who held heaven and earth mystic yellow tokens were also making their final preparations. Almost there. In front of the Mount Kuan Lu group, Demon Slaughter Palace Master Wen Liang raised his cold eyes and glanced at the people behind him. Count the number of people and see if there are any strangers mixed in. Yes, halt, Master. Everyone agreed and scanned their surroundings to see if there were any strangers they did not know. Of course, with Mount Kunliu's prestige in the Dongxing region, no one would dare to mix in with this group. The only unfamiliar ones were the two new members, Mu Feng and Qi Zhang. Palace Lord, the number of people is just right. A middle-aged man with the rank of an elder said with certainty. When Liang nodded, he immediately exchanged glances with Qi Hanyu, the master of the Flying Celestial Hall, and the two of them took the lead to fly up on their magnificent carriages. Everyone from Mount Kunliu followed, closely behind. The mighty team released a powerful aura that suppressed everyone present. As expected of the team from Mount Kunliu, their aura is so F*King strong. To be honest, if that sect leader Gong Yangyu didn't leave, Mount Kunliu's strength could easily be ranked in the top 10 in the Dongxing region. In fact, they're not far from the top 10. While the people from the various sects discussed below, the people from Mount Kunliu arrived at the area below the Door of Apocalypse. Mount Kunliu? As far as I know, that Gong Yangyu is considered an important person in the Dongxing region. Luo Teng held his chin with one hand and muttered to himself. This is our pass. Qi Hanyu, the master of the Flying Celestial Hall, flipped her hand and flicked her slender fingers. 4 heaven and earth mystic yellow tokens floated towards Luo Teng like feathers. Luo Teng casually took the heaven and earth mystic yellow tokens and said, It seems that the rumored Gong Yangyu isn't here. I wonder where he is. I, Luo Teng, would like to meet him. The people from Mount Kunliu were stunned. Qi Hanyu and Wen Liang looked at each other. The latter cupped his fists and said, Sect leader Gong Yang is traveling and hasn't returned yet. Oh, he's not in Mount Kunliu? Luo Teng was slightly surprised. This person didn't know that sect leader Gong Yang had already left the Dongxing region. Chu Hen, who was in the team, was slightly confused. It seemed like there wasn't a force in the Dongxing region that didn't know about this, right? However, Chu Hen quickly understood. The reason was simple. The Light Sacred Tribe was one of the most ancient and powerful races in the East Continent, but they weren't a force in the Dongxing region. The Light Sacred Tribe wouldn't bother to ask about what happened here. Or rather, they disdained to ask about it. The East Continent was as vast as the Sea of Stars. The Dongxing region was just one of the places that the Light Sacred Tribe had touched. However, it had to be said that Gong Yangyu, who was known to the Light Sacred Tribe, was not an ordinary person. Please, Luo Ting didn't say much after knowing that Gong Yangyu wasn't in Mount Kunliu. Thank you. Wen Liang cupped his fists in acknowledgement. Then he and Qi Hanyu took the lead and led the people from Mount Kunliu towards the giant golden door. This day had finally come. This was the thought that everyone from Mount Kunliu had in mind. Nan Gonghao, Lung Lingyan, Shanzhan, Mu Feng, Qi Zhang, as well as Chu Hen and the others, were all filled with fervent excitement. The giant awakened heaven gate that spanned thousands of feet was like a god that shrouded the sky above everyone's heads. The sacred radiance that shone down from within was dazzling. Everyone charged into the thousands of light beams and became one with the light behind the giant gate. In the next instant, when he entered the light, Chu Hen only felt the sky and earth spin. An extremely strong pulling force was currently pulling his body, as if he was drawn into a storm whirlpool. However, this feeling made him feel incomparably relaxed, without the slightest bit of nervousness. Roar! Suddenly, at this moment, a deafening roar of a ferocious beast resounded in the sky above Mount Qingqing. In the next moment, a giant beast with a wingspan of more than 1,000 meters came piercing through the wind and clouds. This was a ferocious beast with a head that resembled the legendary Qilin. However, the difference was that this giant beast had an extra pair of wings, and its shape was closer to that of a handsome Qilin beast. A level 9 beast emperor was a terrifying existence comparable to a level 9 profound world realm expert. Chapter 754. Roar! The sudden appearance of the Qilin beast set off a strong gust of wind and chi waves. The people around Qingqing Mountain were shocked by the sudden appearance of the Qilin beast. It's a handsome Qilin beast? Hiss! A 9th order beast emperor. This is the first time I've seen a demonic beast of this level. Roar! Under the gazes of the crowd that were filled with bewilderment, the Qilin beast traversed the sky with an imposing aura that shot into the heavens, and its vast ferocious might that could topple mountains and overturn the seas dragged out an expanse of powerful ripples in the sky. Like an aurora, it rushed towards the giant golden door in the sky. Buzz! At the same time, the Golden Gate released a dazzling radiance that swept everyone from Mount Kuan Lu's team into it, instantly disappearing without a trace. As soon as the people from Mount Kunlia left, the brave Qilin beast also stopped moving. It circled around the area below the giant golden door like a falcon that had lost its target. It let out a low growl, showing that it was unwilling to give up. At this moment, not only were the people from the major forces at the foot of Qingqing Mountain exchanging glances, but even Luo Tang and the dozens of Holy Guard experts from the Light Sacred Clan were confused. What's wrong with this beast now? Luo Ting frowned and said unhappily. At this moment, a silver-armored Saint Guard flew up and whispered to Luo Tang, "My lord, this handsome Qilin beast went on a top-secret mission with Lord Songli a few months ago." Top-secret mission? Luo Ting narrowed his eyes and asked curiously, "What top-secret mission?" "Haha, sir, you're making things difficult for me. What top-secret mission? How would I have the right to know? However, I heard that the higher-ups weren't satisfied with the mission Lord Songli carried out. He was even punished for it." The silver-armored Holy Guard said mysteriously. Oh, upon hearing this, Luo Teng was even more surprised. Even Songli had not completed that task? This was truly unexpected to him. Luo Teng knew very well how strong Songli was. If even he failed, it could be seen that the mission was no small matter. "Sir," the silver-armored Holy Guard continued, "this Qilin beast has an extremely sharp and powerful sensory ability. It will never forget the aura it remembers. I'm guessing that one of the people who went in just now is most likely related to the mission that Lord Songli carried out last time." Luo Ting could not help but fall into deep thought after listening to the other party's words. He looked at the Qilin beast that was still hovering under the giant golden door, and many complicated emotions surged between his brows. The silver-armored guard continued, "Sir, although we don't know what top-secret mission Lord Songli is carrying out, I'm sure it's something important. If the handsome Qilin beast really remembers that person's aura, we can follow it and find that person. When that time comes, it'll be a great merit." They were discussing in low voices. The teams of the major sects and families in the area below were getting impatient, but even so, no one dared to rashly step forward to disturb them. After some thought, Luo Ting shook his head. "Put away your thoughts, sir. Just do your job well. Since it's a top-secret mission, the higher-ups won't let us get involved. Moreover, this is only your guess. What if you're wrong? I don't need to say anything more." The silver-armored guard's face turned pale. He bowed and said, "Sir, I was wrong. I spoke too much. I'll pretend that you didn't say anything." "Yes, thank you, sir." Then the silver-armored guard hurriedly returned to the area where he was earlier. Luo Teng's eyes narrowed. He lifted his head to look at the Qilin beast that had spread its wings and left. In the end, he shook his head. He knew very well that he had to be careful no matter what he did in the Divine Light clan. I'm really curious. Even an expert like Song Li failed to carry out a mission. Phew! Luo Tang let out a sigh of relief and stopped thinking about other things. He looked at the crowd below and said, "Next." Buzz. The world spun and space shifted. The group of people from Mount Kunliu felt like they had passed through a long tunnel of time. Endless golden lights flashed around them. This feeling was very similar to when they used the teleportation array. Hua! After an unknown amount of time, a bright golden light flashed in front of everyone. Immediately, their feet touched the ground, and their bodies landed firmly on the ground. What followed was a completely new and refreshing environment. The mountains and rivers in front of them were majestic and lush with vegetation. A natural moat that stretched from east to west appeared in front of them. The cliffs looked like they were cut by a knife, and the waterfalls looked like the Milky Way. The sky was high, and the earth was wide. The craggy mountain rocks looked like the work of the gods. At this moment, everyone from Mount Kunliu was at the peak of a towering mountain. They looked down at the mountains and witnessed the auspicious signs of heaven and earth. Is this the ancient Desolation Heaven realm? Why is it a little different from what I imagined? How is it different? I don't know. I have an indescribable feeling. Hearing the clamor of the disciples behind him, the demon-slaying palace master Wen Liang frowned and said, "This is only a corner of the ancient Desolation Heaven realm. There are dangers everywhere. Don't be careless." After being scolded by Wen Liang, everyone woke up. Over the past thousands of years, the ancient desolate Heaven domain had never been known as a good place. Even though it appeared to be a peaceful and desolate place, there was something strange about the peaceful appearance. The master of the flying immortal palace, Qi Hanyu, revealed a serious expression. She turned around and said, "Nangong Hao, Lung Lingyan, Dan Zhen, Chu Hen. The four of you go and investigate the surrounding situation." The moment she spoke, Qi Hanyu chose the four strongest disciples from Mount Kunliu. One could imagine how serious she was about the ancient Desolation Heaven realm. Yes, the four of them replied in unison. The main thing is to investigate the terrain. Once you discover any danger, retreat immediately. Qi Hanyu added. Disciple understands. Immediately, Nangong Ju and Lung Lingyan left first. The two of them headed towards the east and west respectively. Be careful. You too. Hua Shui pouted and reminded them with concern. Don't worry. I'm good at escaping. Shanjin joked. Chu Hen smiled. He exchanged glances with Mu Feng, Qi Zhang, Haozi, and the others and nodded. Following that, his figure moved, and he and Danjin each chose a direction and soared into the sky. As for the others, they stayed where they were and waited. This place is really surprisingly quiet. Mu Feng glanced at a broken mountain range as he spoke with a profound tone. I believe that it won't be long before the ancient desolate Heaven domain turns into a battlefield. Some people said that the ancient Desolation Heaven realm was a blessed land created by the ancestors and gifted to the later generations. Some people said that the ancient Desolation Heaven realm was the remains of a chaotic battle thousands of years ago. Chapter 755. The magnificent mountains, rivers, and forests were like ancient mountains that had existed for thousands of years. According to Qi Hanyu's order, Nangong Bai, Lung Lingyan, Shanjun, and Chu Hen, the four strongest disciples of Mount Kunlu, were the first to explore the way. At this moment, Chu Hen had arrived at an area about 200 miles away. In front of him, there were many steep cliffs that pierced through the clouds. A faint mist floated between the heavens and the earth. The surrounding environment was beautiful, and the spiritual energy was abundant. One had to admit that compared to the outside world, the ancient desolate Heaven domain was like a paradise for cultivation. The abundance of spiritual energy here far surpassed that of the victorious East Province. Even if one stayed here and did nothing, just breathing and absorbing spiritual energy from the heavens and the earth to cultivate. One's cultivation speed would be several times faster than the outside world. It was no wonder that everyone fought so hard to enter the ancient, desolate heaven domain, of course. Chu Hen also understood that this was only the tip of the iceberg of the ancient, desolate heaven domain's charm. It even contained the power to make the Xian body reach the saint body level. Swoosh! Suddenly, Chu Hen's eyes narrowed as he caught a hint of an obscure aura. There's someone. Chu Hen couldn't help but slow down his footsteps. Then he moved his body and landed on the side of a mountain peak. Looking ahead, what appeared in front of him was a vast and deep canyon. In the middle of the pool, there was a mound of soil. On the mound of soil, there was a lot of vegetation, and there were a few colorful flowers and plants. The clear water was blue, and the flowers and plants were beautiful. The mountains on both sides of the deep pool were so steep that it looked as if they were carved by a god with a giant axe. At first glance, this place was beautiful and harmonious. However, when Chu Hen saw the beautiful scene in front of him, he frowned slightly. His intuition told him that this was not a good place. It was very simple. In this clear pond water, there wasn't even a single underwater creature to be seen. Not only that, there wasn't even a trace of an ordinary wild beast within a radius of nearly 50 kilometers, let alone some large demonic beasts. Then a few swift and fierce figures flew out from the side of another mountain peak. There were a total of 4 people. From their clothes, it could be seen that they were not disciples of the sect. Most of them were Horizon Ronin or bounty hunters. The human aura that Chu Hen had sensed earlier came from them. The cultivation of these people is not weak. They have all reached the level of the profound world realm. Chu Hen thought to himself. He immediately restrained his aura and hid in the dark to observe. The 4 of them did not stop at all and flew straight towards the pool in front of them. Hee, I didn't expect to find so many resurrection grass right after entering this place. My luck is really not bad. The one who spoke was a middle-aged man with triangular eyes. His cold smile revealed a hint of complacency. A stalk of resurrection grass is worth 100 million high-grade origin crystal stones in the market. There are at least a few thousand stalks of resurrection grass here. With these, we won't have to worry for the rest of our lives, hee. The other man, who was short but exuded a cold aura, smiled knowingly. Resurrection grass? Chu Hen raised his eyebrows and looked over. Among the strange flowers and plants growing on the slope in the pool, there was a dark red flower that was the most eye-catching. The leaves of this flower were very strange. They were like the palm of a human. When the 5 fingers were spread out, it was like a human hand waving. It was wonderful and a little strange. Chu Hen had some understanding of this so-called resurrection grass. It was a kind of treasure that had a very healing effect. Due to its high price, one stalk was worth close to 100 million. Only those from the big sects and families could afford it. At this time, the 4 of them had already reached the area above the deep pool of the canyon. The man with triangular eyes who spoke first shouted coldly, "This area is so quiet. There's most likely some evil beast hiding here. Second brother and I will go and pick the resurrection grass. Third brother, fourth brother, you 2 act according to the situation and cover us at any time." "Understood." The 2 men behind him replied in unison. Those who could obtain the heaven and earth mystic yellow token and enter the ancient, desolate heaven domain with their own abilities were not ordinary people. The 4 of them were very cautious. The triangular-eyed man and the short man looked at each other. Then their figures flashed towards the small hill in the middle of the pool. The other 2 men also took out their weapons and iron chains, ready to cover the 2 of them at any time. "Move out." Looking at the resurrection grass on the ground, the 4 of them looked like they were looking at a pile of gold. It was worth hundreds of billions of high-grade crystal stones. To anyone, it was a huge fortune. However, just as the two of them were about to pick the first stalk of resurrection grass. The calm surface of the water suddenly rippled. Then, with a deafening sound, the water rose to a height of 100 meters. A terrifyingly powerful aura surged out like a flood and immediately enveloped the area. Oh no! The faces of the four people changed dramatically. Before the others could react, more than a dozen incomparably huge tentacles directly flew out like flood dragons from the sea, and instantly entangled the triangular-eyed man and the gloomy man within. What? The four of them were shocked again. The huge tentacles were like the hands of the sea god from the deep sea. Each tentacle was more than 100 meters long, and the dark red tentacles were covered with large suction cups. The two of them were immediately unable to move, as if they were entangled by giant pythons. Third brother, fourth brother, hurry up and cut these things, the two of them shouted in panic. In the next second, the two of them who were in charge of covering and rescuing had already raised the weapons in their hands, and the true origin aura in their bodies burst out without reservation. Evil creature, don't be arrogant. The burly third brother held a 2-meter-long golden blade in his hand. Endless true origin gathered on the blade, and it emitted a dazzling light. He raised the blade with both hands, and with a force that could split a mountain, he slashed at the tentacle that was wrapped around the man with triangular eyes. An all-out attack from an expert in the profound world realm was enough to split a mountain. This slash was full of energy. Boom! The extremely lethal slash was ruthlessly slashed down, and the raging power was vented on the tentacle. A thunderous sound exploded in the sky, and a chaotic wave of air shattered like a rain of light. Something that shocked everyone happened. The opponent's slash seemed to have hit a copper pillar, and it could not even break the skin and flesh of the tentacle. What? The third brother's eyes were wide open, and his face was pale. How was this possible? Whoosh! Without waiting for him to make any reaction, the other tentacle directly swung over, and with a rapid wind breaking momentum, it dragged a series of afterimages in the air. Bang! With an explosive sound, the other party was smashed by the tentacle and directly burst into a cloud of blood mist. Third brother. The remaining people were shocked and angry, but more than that, they were filled with endless fear. I'm sorry, big brother, second brother. The fourth brother was so scared that he did not dare to stay here any longer. He turned around and fled, completely occupied by fear. However, just as he turned around, in the next second, a flying tentacle instantly wrapped around him. The other party was like a rabbit being attacked by a giant python, unable to move, and was firmly suppressed. Ah, help, no. Crash! Amidst the blood-curdling screams filled with fear, the three men were dragged into the deep pool by the terrifying tentacles. Water splashed everywhere, and the scarlet blood was gradually diluted by the blue ripples. In the blink of an eye, the pool became quiet again. What a terrifying water monster! Chu Hen, who was hiding in the dark, witnessed the scene that happened in front of him, and his back faintly felt a little cold. In just a blink of an eye, for experts in the profound world realm died here. They did not even get to see the full appearance of the underwater demon beast, but with that huge tentacle, he could imagine that the other party was definitely a terrifying behemoth. He could not afford to provoke it. Without too much hesitation, Chu Hen shook his head. Then his figure moved, and he turned around to return in the direction from which he came, ready to report back. A moment later, Chu Hen returned to the temporary residence of the people in Mount Kunliu. Almost at the same time, Nangongju, Lunglingyan, and Shanzhen also arrived. You're all back. Are you all right? Did you encounter any danger? Hua Xue, Haozi, and Mu Feng asked. Chu Hen smiled and shook his head. After that, the four of them looked at Qi Hanyu and Wen Liang, the two Hall Masters, and replied in turn. 100 miles to the north is a desolate desert. I walked 100 miles in the desert, but I did not see the end. There are many underground demon beasts in the desert. Shan Zhen was the first to speak. Chi Hanyu nodded slightly, then looked at Lun Lingyan. The latter raised her beautiful eyes, and her red lips opened slightly, saying, "There are many rocky valleys in the east, and many cave demon beasts live there." Simple and clear. Then Chu Hen paused for a moment, then said, "There is a large area of jungle and mountains to the south, and there is a deep pool 200 miles away. There are demon beasts hiding in the pool, and they are very strong. 4 profound world realm experts were killed in an instant." Oh! As soon as he said that, everyone was slightly shocked. "What kind of demon beast?" Chi Hanyu asked. Chu Hen shook his head. "I did not see its full appearance. I only saw a lot of huge tentacles." Tentacles? Chi Hanyu and Wen Liang looked at each other. The latter did not think much of it. It was just a demon beast. There was nothing to be surprised about. Before Chu Hen could finish a sentence, Wen Liang turned to look at Nan Gongqian. The latter glanced at Chu Hen from the corner of his eyes, then raised his head and answered, "I found an ancient city 300 miles to the west." Ancient city? Everyone's eyes lit up. Chapter 756. On the ancient road of the desolate city, the roots of the banyan tree run deep. A vast and flat ancient city appeared before the eyes of the group from Mount Kunliu. As if it had been weathered by the wind and rain for countless years, the ancient city exuded an unusually desolate aura. Many places had been eroded by the passage of time. The towering city walls stood before them, and it was difficult to make out the words on the walls. An ancient and desolate aura surged from the wide city gates, giving off a feeling that no one had been here for a long time. Previously, after Chu Hen, Nangongju, and the other two had investigated the surroundings, the 2 hall masters and a few elders had discussed and decided to head in the direction of the ancient city that Nangongju had discovered. "Hall master, should we send a few disciples in to investigate first?" A middle-aged elder asked in a deep voice. "There's no need." Wen Liang raised his hand slightly. "Just go in directly." As one of the hall masters of Mount Kunliu, Wen Liang had absolute confidence and strength. Even if there were any dangers in the ancient city, he would be able to bear it. However, the flying immortal hall master, Chi Hanyu, said indifferently, "It's better to send a few disciples in to investigate first. We've already wasted a lot of time. Even though this is the ancient, desolate heaven domain, we don't have to be so restrained. With the 2 of us here, we can head in without worry." When Liang's tone was rather unyielding. This was also related to the martial art that he cultivated, the great demon slaughter technique. Every corner of his body exuded a powerful and domineering aura. Chi Hanyu could not be bothered to argue with him, so she did not insist any further. Soon after, under the lead of the 2 hall masters, the group from Mount Kunliu directly stepped through the gates of the ancient city and majestically made their way into the city. Even though the city was ancient, the buildings were still relatively well maintained. Many tall buildings stood on both sides of the wide streets, and the weeds that covered the ground seemed to be telling of the desolation of this place. Under the desolation of the jade palaces, the past glory and prosperity were depicted. The ancient city was still abnormally quiet. There was not even the slightest rustling of grass in the wind. Everyone could only hear the sound of the group's footsteps. Under such a cautious atmosphere, everyone could not help but feel a little stifled. "It's really strange." Rat frowned slightly, and his pair of small eyes were filled with confusion. "What?" Chu Hen asked in a low voice. "In such an empty and desolate place, I can't even see a mouse." The people around him were slightly stunned. Mu Feng glanced sideways and said casually, "They're all starving to death." What a joke! Hauser rolled his eyes at him with slight dissatisfaction. In his opinion, all rodents had extremely tenacious vitality. Some poisonous insects, snakes, ants, and the like could all become food for rodents. In a wasteland like this, there could be no humans, but there would definitely be rodents. Maybe there are no rats in the ancient, desolate heaven region. Hua Shui said, The few of them were startled once again. Chu Hen replied in a somewhat funny manner, "That makes sense. Senior Brother Mouse, you should let Xiao Jin patrol around." "Okay." Hausi nodded and raised his right hand. Then a little fellow the size of a child's fist scurried out of his sleeve and lay on his palm. What a cute golden rodent! Hua Shui's eyes lit up, and she subconsciously reached out to touch its furry little head. "Is this a pet of yours? Lend it to me to play with for 2 days." Hausi smiled and said to the golden rodent, "Xiao Jin, go and see if there are any of your kind nearby." The mouse let out a soft "gee-gee" sound like a mosquito. Then it leaped and turned into a ray of light, quickly disappearing at a corner of the street. The group continued forward. Not long after, the group from Mount Kunliu arrived at the center of the wasteland. In front of them was an ancient central plaza. There were artificial mountains, platforms, gardens, pavilions, and other buildings on the plaza. What was different from the outside world was that these buildings were particularly imposing. Coupled with the magnificent palaces nearby, it made this place stand out even more. "What's that?" Suddenly, a young disciple subconsciously blurted out. Everyone was slightly shocked and looked in the direction he was pointing. They saw a strange ball on top of an artificial mountain. Upon closer inspection, the ball was not particularly regular. It looked like a flower bud that had yet to bloom. A faint white halo flowed around it like a thin layer of gauze. Looking at the flower bud ball that was about 1/2 meter in diameter, everyone's faces revealed a hint of confusion. Clearly, none of them knew what it was. "What's that thing?" "There seems to be a rather strong energy fluctuation. The ancient desolate heaven region is indeed a blessed land. There's so many rare treasures growing here. Could it be the heavenly spirit flower?" An uncertain voice came from the crowd. "Oh, heavenly spirit flower?" Hearing these 3 words, the hearts of the people from Mount Kunliu lit up. The heavenly spirit flower was an extremely rare heaven and earth spirit flower. It was nurtured by the essence of the earth and gradually grew. When it bloomed, it could reach a height of hundreds of meters. It had a very powerful effect of gathering spiritual energy. If it was transplanted to Mount Kunliu, the density of the heaven and earth spirit chi in the entire sect would increase greatly. It would be many times stronger than before. Looking at its appearance, it does look a little like the heavenly spirit flower. We're rich. There are no more than 5 sects in the victorious East State that possess the heavenly spirit flower. We really have to thank Senior Nangong for discovering this ancient city. Senior Nangong has done a great job. The crowd discussed softly and turned their gazes towards the 2 palace masters. Nangong Ho's face also faintly revealed a slightly proud smile. When Leon raised his hand slightly and an elder behind him understood. Then he ordered a young disciple to go forward and inspect it. The disciple's body moved and he leaped like a cheetah, landing steadily on the artificial mountain that was tens of meters tall. He carefully approached the ball and observed it at a close distance. Then he slowly extended his palm that was wrapped in true origin energy and gently placed it on the flower bud. Buzz! A faint ripple appeared in the air and a few wisps of pure energy flowed into the disciple's body. The young disciple's eyes brightened. What pure spiritual energy! Palace Master, the energy is very pure. It's the heavenly spirit flower without a doubt. When this was said, the crowd was overjoyed. The young disciple also very gently and carefully took out the heavenly spirit flower along with the rock underneath it. He held the heavenly spirit flower in his palm as if he had obtained a precious treasure and flew to the ground. Squeak, squeak! At this moment, the gold-eating rat that Hausi had sent out, Little Gold, had also returned. It lightly leaped onto Hausi's palm and let out a low and urgent squeak. When he heard Little Gold's explanation, Hausi's expression suddenly changed. He hurriedly glared at the young disciple who was walking over with the heavenly spirit flower and shouted loudly, "Throw that thing away! Throw it away!" What? The thunderous sound exploded in everyone's ears like a clap of thunder. Even the expressions of the two palace masters changed abruptly. In the next second, the heavenly spirit flower suddenly surged with a violent energy fluctuation that was similar to the magma in the belly of a volcano. The violent fluctuation was comparable to the undercurrents in the deep sea. The powerful aura caused the exquisite flower bud to rapidly expand, and in an instant it became a few meters wide. The young disciple turned pale with fright and hurriedly threw the heavenly spirit flower in his hand away. But at the same time the flower bud directly blossomed with countless dazzling, scarlet rays of light. Bang! With a deafening explosion, the violently twisting and surging flower bud suddenly burst open, and thousands of light beams and flowing shadows wantonly flew about. Ah! Chapter 757. Bang! The extremely violent shockwave caused the entire central square of the desolate city to tremble. The powerful energy riot was like a volcano that had erupted in an instant. Along with the endless scarlet radiance, countless streaks of light flew out from the exploding flower bud. The young Mount Kunliu disciple was caught off guard. Without any preparation, he was directly crushed by the dense streaks of light. In just a blink of an eye, a bloody incident occurred in Mount Kunliu. "Retreat!" The master of the flying celestial palace, Chi Hanyu, shouted coldly. The Mount Kunliu disciples retreated one after another and took a defensive stance. Buzz, buzz. Rumble. The noise was earth-shattering, and it directly enveloped everyone on Mount Kunliu. When everyone focused their attention and saw what was happening, they could not help but clench their fists tightly. Their faces were instantly filled with a thick gloominess and chilling anger. The streaks of light that killed the young disciple were actually reddish-brown poisonous insects. These poisonous insects were not very big and looked a little like ladybugs. However, the people of Mount Kunliu knew very well that these were definitely not ordinary ladybugs. They were the blood-hunting poison ladybugs with extremely strong offensive power. There was only one place in the Eastern Victory State that had this kind of poisonous insect. This place was the sworn enemy of Mount Kunliu, the blood-refining sect. Buzz, buzz! The blood-hunting poison ladybugs that filled the sky were like a sandstorm that was swept up by a gale. They surrounded the people of Mount Kunliu in the central square. A thick aura of danger rushed in from all directions like a torrent. However, an even more terrifying thing happened again. Along with a rustling sound, the ground around the square rapidly bulged up one by one. Following that, densely packed poisonous insects once again drilled out from the ground. Buzz, buzz! Not only that, but the sky outside the city was also filled with a majestic swarm of poisonous bees. The black and dense army of poisonous insects was like a raging tsunami that soared into the sky. With the momentum of returning, they pounced on the people of Mount Kunliu from all directions. Boom! At the same time, a gale blew between heaven and earth. A powerful aura that was as strong as a mountain once again pressed down in this direction. Ha 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 ha, Wen Liang, Chi Hanyu, long time no see. How have you been? The surging true inner force converged into a violent gale that surged forward. Then a black-clothed figure with an astonishing aura appeared in the void. Wen Liang and Chi Hanyu's pupils faintly shrank when they saw the person who had arrived. The former's eyes turned cold as he clenched his hand. A domineering red aura rose from his body. Wen Liang's throat bobbed as he coldly spat out two words. Ho Lai! Ho Lai was one of the most powerful people in the blood-refining hall. When they saw who it was, the faces of the people from Mount Kunliu turned cold. Sure enough, they were from the blood-refining hall. Enemies were truly bound to meet on a narrow road. He had only arrived in the ancient desolate heaven domain for less than a day, and he had already met an enemy. This was truly unexpected. Hey! The middle-aged man named Ho Lai smiled proudly. I am very honored to inform everyone that today is the first day that Mount Kunliu has arrived. An entire army is going to be annihilated here. Humph! Wen Liang sneered and shouted with slight disdain, You! And me, As soon as he finished speaking, a thunderstorm suddenly appeared on the other side of the sky, exploding in everyone's ears. The airwaves were monstrous, and the space was trembling. Another figure, whose aura was not weaker than Ho-Lai's, flew over again. This person had a head of dark blue hair, and his skin was pale without any color of blood. His lips were also dark blue, as if they were smeared with poison, giving off an extremely dangerous feeling. "Liao Qixio!" Wan Liang shouted in a deep voice, and his face couldn't help but turn gloomy. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Following that, several fierce and cold figures flashed from all directions. Looking at the experts of the blood refining hall who appeared around them, the people from Mount Kanliu felt as if they were facing a formidable enemy. They never thought that they would fall into the trap of the blood refining hall on the first day they arrived in the ancient desolate heaven domain. With the two experts, Ho-Lai and Liao Qixio, even Wen Liang and Qi Hanyu might not be able to gain too much of an advantage. The most troublesome thing was the countless venomous insects, snakes, and ants in front of them. Once a war broke out, the people from Mount Kanliu would definitely suffer a great loss. Are you going to surrender without a fight, or are you going to fight like a cornered beast? Liao Qixio's dark blue lips curled up, and a strange smile appeared on his face. Wen Liang's face revealed a disgusted expression. Looking at your face makes me sick. Surrender without a fight? You're just a bunch of useless things who only know how to use unorthodox methods. Do you think that there's no one in Mount Kanliu? Humph, you're just using your tongue. Ho-Lai's eyes darkened, and then a powerful aura was released from his body. It's useless to say more. Today, I'll let the two of you witness with your own eyes how the people from Mount Kanliu die here. Attack! Kill! Without any superfluous words, Ho-Lai ordered. The sky was filled with bloodthirsty poisonous wasps and other venomous insects, snakes and ants, and they directly launched a fierce attack on the people from Mount Kanliu. Tens of thousands of venomous insects started to attack and kill like a magnificent army, showing the power to take lives. After all, the people selected by Mount Kanliu this time were all elite disciples, and they were all experts in the outside world. They were panicked, but not in a mess. Immediately, they broke out a powerful true inner force and displayed all kinds of gorgeous skills. These ants want to swallow our Mount Kunlu? Dream on. Kill these stinky insects. Boom. Bang. Under the impact and devastation of the fierce power, the venomous insects, snakes, and ants were killed and crushed into pieces. Although the venomous insects raised by the blood refining hall had a very powerful attack power, they were not invincible in front of the real elite masters. However, the original intention of the blood refining hall was not to swallow the people from Mount Kanliu with these venomous insects. In the next second, when the bloodthirsty poisonous wasps launched the first attack, the masters and disciples of the blood refining hall in the rear area also rose together. They flew out like sharp arrows, rolling up an amazing momentum into the killing. Boom! In an instant, the battle between the blood refining hall and Mount Kanliu broke out in an instant. Nangongku, Lung Lingyan, Shanzhen, Mufeng, Qizhang, Chuhen, and the others all joined the battle. In an instant, the sky was filled with the glint of blades and shadows of swords. All kinds of powerful martial arts and secret techniques set off dazzling lights and spiritual runes of various colors. Ripples of mighty shockwaves swept in all directions, causing buildings to collapse one after another. Damn it! I thought I could get some benefits by following a big sect, but I didn't expect to become a fighter as soon as I arrived. Mufeng cursed in a low voice. Then he moved his palm, and the pagoda devil's sword appeared in his hand. The awe-inspiring blue sword energy formed a tornado-like whirlpool around him, and all the bloodthirsty poisonous wasps that came within 100 meters of him were directly crushed into pieces. Qizhang, the sect leader of the Thousand Crane sect, shook his head helplessly. However, before he came, he was fully mentally prepared because anything could happen here. Even if he died here, he could only accept his fate. After all, it was his own choice. Howsy, hurry up and call out your handsome rat army. Hua Shue shouted while dodging the flying poisonous insects. Howsy was speechless. This is the ancient desolation, Heaven Domain. Stop dreaming. Be careful. Don't joke around. Chu Hen reminded in a deep voice and summoned the sharp sickle of death. The cold and sharp edge rapidly harvested the insects and the enemy's lives. Hua Shue felt a little wronged. She wasn't joking. She thought that the Weasel army would follow Howsy wherever he went. In the last battle with the Blood Refining Hall, Howsy's Weasel army could be said to be invincible. Chu Hen didn't have time to pay attention to Hua Shue. While he was fighting with the enemies, he looked at Chi Hanyu, Wen Liang, Ho Lai, and Liao Qixio, who were confronting each other. This time, the Blood Refining Hall lured the team from Mount Kunliu into a trap. They indeed had the momentum to capture everyone in one fell swoop. Chapter 758. Boom! Bang! Buzz! Buzz! The collision of martial arts and skills intertwined with the flying sounds of countless blood-hunting poisonous insects, setting off a monstrous turbulence. On the first day of arriving at the ancient, desolate Heaven Domain, the blood-refining sect and Mount Kuin Lu unexpectedly met. A fierce battle instantly broke out. Ho Lai and Liao Qixio, the two powerhouses of the blood-refining sect, looked down at Chi Hanyu and Wen Liang with a condescending attitude. When the four people's gazes met, a chilling intent burst out. Liao Qixio looked at Chi Hanyu and smiled coldly. Then he raised his palm and made a throat-slitting gesture. His dark blue lips curled up, revealing a ferocious intent. Swoosh! However, in the next second, the space trembled and Chi Hanyu immediately disappeared. At the same time, a dazzling aurora tore through the air and directly slashed at Liao Qixio like a sharp sword piercing through the sky. The latter's pupils shrank. With a bang! Sound! The streak of light directly struck Liao Qixio's body. Chaotic true yuan light patterns exploded in the air as a powerful shockwave swept out. Following Liao Qixio was rapidly sent flying backwards under the dazzling white light. The flying celestial palace master, Chi Hanyu, was as light as a feather. Her whole body emitted a transcendent demeanor. You've improved a lot since a few years ago. Liao Qixio sneered as he operated the true origin in his body to suppress the surging blood and qi. He remembered that when they fought last time, Chi Hanyu's performance was far less powerful than today, especially the temperament that she revealed now. It was more stable than before, making it difficult for others to judge her emotional fluctuations. Under such circumstances, it was not something that an ordinary person could still maintain a calm state of mind. Chi Hanyu raised her cold eyes, and the fingers on her slender right hand moved. Xing! A soft sound rang out, and a white sword that was as beautiful as jade appeared in her hand. She flew up, and a holy and pure sword light bloomed. Her powerful aura was like a torrent of water, and it crushed towards the opponent. Liao Qixio's face darkened. He stretched out both his palms, and a gray light surged in his palms. Accompanied by a noisy buzzing sound, densely packed tiny poisonous insects flew out from his palms and rushed towards Chi Hanyu. Chi Hanyu gently raised her wrist and raised her hand. A swift and violent sword light shot out, smashing the swarm of insects in front of her. The smashed swarm of insects turned into countless strands of gray smoke that floated between heaven and earth and shrouded Chi Hanyu's surroundings. Moreover, the gray mist attached itself to Chi Hanyu's true essence, defensive shield, corroding her true essence at a speed visible to the naked eye. Chi Hanyu's brows furrowed and the corners of her eyes narrowed. She muttered in a low voice, "Looks like I have to end this quickly." Rumble. At the same time, Wen Liang and Ho Lai exploded with a majestic aura. The former soared into the sky, while the latter descended diagonally. The true origin outside their bodies surged, and they were like two meteorites that had unexpectedly met and collided head-on. Bang! Along with a deafening bang, the sky above the entire desolated city was in turmoil. The mighty true origin ripple formed a surging halo. The buildings below were directly shaken to the point of collapsing, and they were reduced to ruins. When Liang, you little brat, it's been so many years since we last fought. Your grand devil slayer art has regressed. As the chaotic cyclones converged, the wind and clouds surged, and the color of the sky changed. Faced with Wen Liang, the leader of Devil Slayer Palace, who was famous for his domineering and ferocity, Holai's aura was not suppressed in the slightest. Humph! When Liang glared at Holai, the red light soared and danced around his body as if it was surrounded by the divine flame of the Nine Suns. Every move he made revealed a violent and destructive aura. Then go ahead and try. Swoosh! As soon as Wen Liang finished speaking, thunderous sounds resounded around him. He punched out, and a red fist print that shocked the heavens smashed towards Holai like a mountain. The latter did not want to be outdone. He smiled coldly, and a dense black light surged out of his body. Strands of black light patterns interweaved and covered the surface of Holai's skin, and it immediately formed a thick layer of black armor. This layer of armor seemed to be cast from molten iron, and it looked like an indestructible body of steel. Bang! A loud bang sounded. Holai, who had transformed into a body of steel, used the strength of his body to shatter the ferocious, huge fist print into light pattern fragments that filled the sky. Wen Liang's figure sped up, and his domineering aura could topple the mountains and overturn the seas as he pressed forward. I'm going to peel off this layer of turtle shell of yours today. Humph! Wen Liang, you little brat. You're still so arrogant even when you're at death's door. Bang! Boom! Two different colors of power, one red and one black, blasted the sky. Compared with the battle between Qi Hanyu and Liao Qixio, Wen Liang and Holai were like two furious, fierce beasts. Once they confronted each other, sparks flew everywhere, airwaves flew everywhere, and even the space was shaken and distorted by the fierce power. The four superiors of Mount Kunliu and the Blood Refining Hall with the highest power started a fierce fight, which made the sky gloomy and gloomy. The battle situation of the four people made it difficult for others to get close to them. Although Qi Hanyu and Wen Liang did not show too much emotional fluctuations, everyone knew that they had to seize the initiative and defeat their opponents in the shortest time to establish the victory. Otherwise, the team of Mount Kunliu would be in big trouble. Kill! The fierce scuffle continued to extend. Even though the team of Mount Kunliu fought back strongly, with the help of the countless poisonous insects, the team of the Blood Refining Hall had already gained the upper hand. Even the bite of one or two blood-hunting poisonous ladles was enough to make people confused and suffer physical setbacks. Once the rhythm was messed up, it would be a devastating blow. Get lost! Nangonghao set off a fierce momentum. He raised his palm high and chopped down like a palm knife. A red palm blade light, with peerless momentum, chopped out. Rumble. Along with a gully with a width of more than 10 meters on the ground. The disciples of the Blood Refining Hall and poisonous insects in a straight line in front of him were all smashed into clouds of blood mist. Just when Nangonghao showed his great power, a flying kick as fast as lightning suddenly attacked from the left side. Buzz! Accompanied by a strong wind that swept toward the opponent's head, Nangonghao's eyes turned cold, and he directly blocked it with his arm. Pung! An explosive sound rang out, and a violent explosive force exploded between the two. Nangonghao, who also practiced the Grand Demon Slayer skill, was pushed back by the impact. His feet left deep marks on the ground, and he could only stop after retreating for 7 or 8 meters. Gao Lang! Nangonghao's face was gloomy, and he stared coldly at the figure who attacked him just now. Gao Lang, a top genius of the Blood Refining Hall, was as famous as Nangonghao. Before they came to the ancient Baron's heaven realm, there were many grudges between them. Gao Lang raised his eyebrows and smiled frivolously. You don't mind if I take your life today, do you? Humph. Let's see if you have the ability to do so. After saying that, Nangong Hao dashed toward Gao Lang like a sharp arrow. His fist that was covered with a red glow smashed toward Gao Lang's head with great power. On the other side, after Lang Lingyan killed more than 10 experts of the blood refining hall, a ghost-like remnant shadow was rapidly approaching her from behind. Senior Sister Lung, behind you, a disciple of Mount Kunliu reminded her loudly. Lang Lingyan immediately turned around and stretched out her palm toward the remnant shadow. Her palm did not reveal the slightest fluctuation of power. It looked weak and powerless, just enough to kill an ant. But even so, the afterimage suddenly unleashed a powerful aura of true origin, not daring to be careless when facing Lang Lingyan's attack. Bang! In an instant, Lang Lingyan's jade-like palm collided head-on with one of the pale palms. A heavy explosion set off an astonishing and violent impact. Gorgeous light patterns spread out, and a thick layer of rubble was flattened on the ground. Then both of them retreated dozens of meters away. It's you. Chapter 759. It's you. Lang Lingyan's beautiful eyes turned cold as she looked at the person who attacked her from behind. Lang Lingyan, you didn't expect this to happen to you, did you? An indifferent and flirtatious voice came from a young woman who was about the same age as Lang Lingyan. This woman was quite pretty and had thick makeup on her face. She looked at Lang Lingyan with a frivolous and disdainful gaze. Humph! Lang Lingyan snorted. You're just a loser. How dare you show off in front of me? Loser? Are you joking? When have I, Lu Fu, ever been defeated by you? Now, the corners of Lang Lingyan's mouth curled up slightly. Then her figure moved and directly turned into several afterimages as she swept towards her opponent. The young woman called Lu Fu's eyes turned cold. She did not show any weakness and exploded with a powerful aura to meet the attack. You've always been so arrogant. Of course I'm arrogant because I'm strong, you stupid woman. Lang Lingyan's movement speed was extremely fast and was like a light breeze. She did not release any aura, making it difficult for others to judge the strength of her attack. However, Lu Fu was not an ordinary person. Like Gao Lang, who was fighting with Nangong Bai, she was also a top genius in the blood refining hall. Her attack and defense were full of powerful sharpness. Boom! The fierce battle between the two great sects destroyed the desolate city with an earth-shattering momentum. Various gorgeous and powerful martial arts collided wantonly, causing the entire space to distort and shake. Blood rained down as severed limbs flew in all directions. With the help of these tens of thousands of poisonous insects, snakes, and ants, the blood refining hall gained the upper hand with an absolute advantage. One by one, the disciples of Mount Kunliu were bitten and destroyed by the blood-hunting poisonous scoop and the bloodthirsty poisonous bees. They died miserably, this group of damned bastards. After killing an enemy with a palm strike, Dan Zhen angrily rebuked. Not far away, Fu Qin, Hua Shui, Ji Shu, Qi Teng, and the others were also extremely anxious. If this continued, the Mount Kunliu team would really be annihilated today. The corners of Chu Hen's eyes narrowed. Then he said to Mu Feng, Haozi, and the others in a stern voice, "Kill the poisonous insects first!" Boom! Before he finished speaking, a powerful purple radiance erupted from Chu Hen's body. The purple radiance surged within his eyes, and the 4 black dots within his pupils rapidly rotated. Along with an extremely icy cold aura, the space in the area above him twisted, and a violent tsunami-like purple flame quickly spread outwards. The demonic flame engulfed the blood-hunting poison ladle and the bloodthirsty giant wasps with the momentum of a prairie fire. The sky changed color, and with crackling sounds, a large number of poisonous insects were reduced to ashes. What? When the masters of the blood refining hall saw this scene, they were all secretly shocked. The poisonous insects they raised were not afraid of ordinary flames at all. As for the strange purple flames in front of him, its lethality was really strong. Demonic whirlwind slash. Then, Mufong also set off a majestic momentum. He waved the pagoda demonic sword in his hand, and countless fierce blue sword gang hovered around him and rotated rapidly. In an instant, a huge tornado vortex with a height of more than 100 feet hit the poisonous insects, snakes, and ants flying between heaven and earth with the momentum of stirring the sky. Rumble. It was as if a storm had struck and a hurricane enveloped the area. Countless poisonous insects were forcefully crushed to pieces. Haozi, Qizhang, Danzhen, and the others also made the poisonous insects the primary target. As long as they blocked the attack of these poisonous insects, the advantage of the blood refining hall would quickly disappear. At that time, the people of Mount Kunliu could stabilize their position and survive. However, the blood refining hall would never allow this to happen. Kill them. A master of the blood refining hall pointed at Chu Hen, who showed great power with the demonic flame, and shouted, "Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh!" Before he finished his words, more than a dozen aggressive figures, like wolves pouncing on their prey, exuded a cold, murderous aura. Go to hell! Facing the people who surrounded him from all sides, Chu Hen did not have the slightest fear on his face. He leaped and instantly arrived in the void. Then his body rotated rapidly, and along with the violently shaking space, a surge of shocking sword momentum burst out of his body. One sword celestial, myriad sword tribulation. Buzz! In the next instant, countless peerlessly powerful black sword rain blossomed from Chu Hen's body. The densely packed sword light mirage tore through the air and split the air. It was as if it was 1,000 years of time, and it flew in all directions. The people who besieged Chu Hen were all shocked. Before they could recover, the sword light penetrated their bodies one after another. Hiss! Blood splattered, and more than a dozen people were pierced into sieves by the sword light in a burst of screams. The appearance of this scene directly attracted the attention of Liao Qixio and Ho Lai, the two leaders of the blood refining hall. The latter frowned and spat out a few words coldly. One sword celestial technique. Exactly. Wan Liang, the master of the demon-slaying hall, crossed his arms, and the red light outside his body surged like a flame. The mountain-like power crushed all the way, and then a red light beam fell from the sky, blasting at Ho Lai like a divine punishment. I'll let you see the real power of the grand demon-slaying technique. The terrifying momentum directly shrouded Ho Lai. Ho Lai's face changed slightly, and he quickly flashed sideways to escape 100 meters away. The next second, the red light beam hit the ground of the barren city below. Bang! The city collapsed and the ground cracked. The endless destructive impact was comparable to a meteorite whizzing down. The ground quickly cracked into a huge sinkhole, and the bricks cracked inch by inch. The dense gravel, big and small, was like a group of startled moths, blotting out the sky and the earth and splashing wantonly. The mighty and powerful shock wave instantly killed countless poisonous insects and many disciples of the blood refining hall. Bang! On the other side, Qi Hanyu and Liao Qixio also hit each other hard. The silver and gray light patterns spread out vertically, and the piercingly cold air waves were like ripples on the surface of water. Wherever they went, the space was distorted. Looks like your Mount Kunliu has a few good talents in recent years. Liao Qixio's face was a little surprised. Qi Hanyu held her long sword diagonally, and circles of true origin flowed around her body. With her as the center, the heaven and earth faintly produced a shocking and powerful rhythm. You want to swallow our Mount Kunliu? Wishful thinking. That's not necessarily true. A strange smile appeared on Liao Qixio's face, and then he turned his gaze to Ho Lai, who was elsewhere. It's time to take out the big gift I prepared for them. That's exactly what I intend to do. Ho Lai's eyes were also filled with thick ridicule. Big gift? The people of Mount Kunliu were all shocked, and a huge wave of uneasiness surged in their hearts. Boom! Suddenly, Liao Qixio and Ho Lai's body released an unprecedented momentum. The two of them faced each other with one palm in the air, standing far away. Extremely restless energy flew out from their palms at the same time. Bang! The moment the true origin light beams shot out by the two of them met, it was like two lightning bolts had unexpectedly met, and thousands of sparks and arcs of light were produced. The sky was filled with dazzling arcs of light, and the space between the two immediately fell into an uneasy state of distortion. Dark clouds surged, and the world spun. Under the angry roar of the wind, the earth became dark and dull. The blooming arcs of light actually converged to form a magnificent and majestic glyph array. Light and shadow flowed within the glyph array like a divine disk rumble. Wind and lightning crisscrossed, and the glyph array constantly erupted with dazzling light. Layer after layer of vast waves of air spread out, forming a huge pressure that shook the people below and caused them to continuously retreat, unable to stand steadily. Liao Qixio laughed proudly. Come out! A species born to kill. Bang! A huge golden light beam erupted from the glyph array, and the light beam struck the desolate city below. The ground cracked layer by layer. Dust flew everywhere, and rocks flew all over the place. A cold and dangerous aura surged out like a surging tide. Kiki. Chapter 760. Tisk. The temperature in the entire desolate city dropped abruptly as a cold and dangerous aura surged out. Everyone present could feel the cold and dangerous aura from the bottom of their hearts. In the next instant, a gigantic, ferocious creature that seemed to have awakened after 1,000 years of slumber appeared before the eyes of the people from Mount Kliu Mountain, who were trembling in fear. Swoosh! A vast, cold air wave swept out in all directions like ripples on the surface of water. The ground cracked, sand and stones flew, and the buildings were razed to the ground. This was an extremely ferocious and terrifying evil monster. It looked like a huge, venomous scorpion, but in the middle of its body there was the torso and head of a huge ant standing upright. It looked like a combination of a scorpion and a gigantic ant. From afar, the giant ant looked as if it had grown out from the scorpion's back. Its incomparably sharp tentacles were covered with thorns, and its iron pants-like mouth was comparable to a guillotine. Its entire body was covered with a shiny black carapace, as if it was cast from copper, and was impervious to all weapons. Tisk. The scorpion and the giant ant let out a shrill cry of excitement as their scarlet eyes gleamed with a bloodthirsty light. Looking at this pair of conjoined monsters, everyone from Mount Kunliu felt a chill in their hearts. Other than the other party's terrifying appearance, the aura emitted by this monster caused one's heart to palpitate. The faces of Wen Liang, the palace master of Devil Slaughter Palace, and Qi Hanyu, the palace master of Soaring Celestial Palace, were filled with shock. The latter clenched her delicate fists and muttered with a solemn expression. They actually succeeded? Wen Liang's eyes were cold and his face was gloomy. According to the information that Mount Kliu Mountain had collected, the blood-refining sect had been researching a new secret tactic in recent years. This kind of secret technique was to combine the bloodlines of two powerful demonic beasts with extremely strong offensive abilities, allowing them to become a new generation of new species. The new species would possess the strength and characteristics of the two beasts and become a more dangerous product. After collecting this information, Mount Kunliu also sent more people to investigate the blood refining hall, but there was no progress. Later, it was thought that the blood refining hall gave up the development of this secret skill. After all, it was too difficult to complete this plan. But he never expected that the blood refining hall had never stopped developing this secret skill. They had been doing it secretly. What was even more surprising was that they actually succeeded. The expressions on your faces are exactly what I'm looking forward to." A proud smile appeared on both Liao Qixio and Holai's faces. The former spread his arms and laughed excitedly. It's a species formed from the fusion of two beast emperor-level demon beasts, the Dark Scorpion Emperor and the Devouring Ant Emperor. We've named it the Evil Beast of Death. Its bloodline will be much stronger than before. Demonic Beast of Death. The expressions of the people from Mount Kuin Lu changed again and again. They were shocked again and again. Just how powerful would a new species born from the combination of the bloodlines of two top beast kings be? Could it be a terrifying species that was even more powerful than the beast emperors? Heavenly beasts? I've been waiting for a long time. The slaughter begins. Liao Qixio's demonic laughter reverberated through the air. In an instant, the evil beast of death seemed to have broken through its shackles. Its two huge and ferocious heads faced the sky and roared. Its entire body was emitting surging black gas. Its sharp tentacles and claws waved like an octopus as it charged towards the people from Mount Kunlu. "Retreat!" an elder from Mount Kunlu shouted. "Don't fight it head on!" Rumble. The aura of the evil beast of death was extremely strong. It was like a moving mountain. A few disciples from Mount Kuin Lu could not avoid it in time and were instantly swept by its huge pincers and claws. Bang! They were smashed into pieces, and their heads were separated from their bodies. Humph! What evil beast of death! I'd like to test its capabilities. The eyes of the demon-slaying palace master, Wen Liang, surged with coldness. As soon as he finished speaking, he moved and swept up billowing flames as he charged towards the evil beast of death. Boom! However, in the next moment, a black light screen appeared out of thin air and flew up like a tsunami, directly blocking Wen Liang's path. "Hey, your opponent is me!" A frivolous sneer could be heard as Ho Lai chased after Wen Liang and struck with his palm. Wang! A palm blade that was hundreds of meters wide slashed down with the might of a thunderbolt. Wen Liang turned around to face the attack. Both of his palms rotated and a scarlet energy ball flew out and bombarded the palm blade. Bang! It was earth-shattering and the sky shook. The powerful forces collided and exploded, creating a raging wave of true essence that covered the sky. Wild gales howled in all directions. Wen Liang's eyes narrowed, and he could not help but look at Qi Hanyu, who was on the other side. Qi Hanyu nodded. She understood what he meant. "Disciples of Mount Kunlu, listen to my order. Retreat! Retreat!" Qi Hanyu gave the order as fast as she could. The reason why Wen Liang wanted to test the strength of the evil beast of death was completely intentional. Ho Lai intercepted Wen Liang immediately. This was enough to prove that the combat strength of the evil beast of death had not reached the level of a mature heavenly beast. If it was an adult heavenly beast, the people of Mount Kunlu would definitely die today. But now there was still a chance of survival if they retreated at full speed. Immediately, Wen Liang and Qi Hanyu unleashed their strongest power and launched a fierce attack on Liao Qixio and Ho Lai. On the other hand, Nangong Hao, Lung Lingyan, and the other top genius disciples were responsible for covering the retreat of the people of Mount Kunlu. Even so, it was difficult for them to resist the evil beast of death's pursuit and attack. Hee! The disdainful shriek seemed to be mocking the struggle of the people of Mount Kunlu. One after another, the young disciples were crushed by the claws of the evil beast of death. One after another, experts lost their lives under its giant mouth that looked like a man-eating flower. Wherever the evil beast of death went, there were wails. "This dog, let's fight it to the death." Seeing his companions die one after another in front of him, Shan Zhen was filled with rage. Swoosh! He soared into the sky and turned into a ray of light. "Senior brother Shan Zhen, don't be impulsive!" Hua Shui exclaimed. However, Shan Zhen was ready to fight with his life on the line. Surging true inner force spread out from his body, and gorgeous golden light patterns flowed around him. They immediately intertwined and transformed into a giant golden eagle with an unparalleled aura. The evil beast of death let out a disdainful laugh. The poisonous stinger on its tail soared into the sky like a chain. It swept up a strong, destructive aura and headed toward the giant golden eagle that Shan Zhen had transformed into. Boom! When the two collided, it set off a heavy, thunderous sound between heaven and earth. In the next second, the giant eagle's shadow outside Shan Zhen's body was directly shattered by the impact. It instantly burst into thousands of true inner force fragments. What? Shan Zhen's pupils shrank violently. He saw the sharp, poisonous stinger, like the stinger of a swordfish shuttling through the deep sea, quickly attacking Shan Zhen's chest. Swoosh! At the critical moment, a bitingly cold and ferocious death scythe flew over like a boomerang. When the poisonous stinger was less than 2 meters away from Dan Zhen's chest, it fiercely collided with the stinger's tail. Bang! The scattered energy waves exploded outwards, and the fatal tail stinger was knocked off course, sliding past Dan Zhen's left shoulder. That was close. Fu Qin, Hua, Shui, Haozi, and the others below could not help but let out sighs of relief. Swoosh! Shortly after, the scythe of the Grim Reaper drew a trajectory in the air before returning to a strong and slender palm. Looking at the person beside her, Shan Zhen revealed a look of gratitude. Chapter 761. Get ready to cover me! After saving Dan Jin, Chu Hen shouted in a deep voice. Boom! In the next moment, a powerful aura erupted from Chu Hen's body, and the death scythe in his hand blossomed with a dazzling cold light. Without saying a word, he directly charged towards the death demonic beast. Looking at the weak human who had ruined its business, the death demonic beast's dozens of sharp tentacles danced continuously. The ant queen that grew on the back of the giant scorpion actually stood up and then opened its huge mouth like a man-eating flower. Buzz! With a sound, a dark green beam of light shot out from the mouth of the ant queen, sweeping up an extremely restless and destructive killing intent towards Chu Hen. Be careful! Hua Shui, who was in the area below, exclaimed. The corners of Chu Hen's eyes turned cold. His body moved, drawing a beautiful arc in the sky. While avoiding the impact of the beam of light, he once again increased his speed. The rapid sound of breaking wind was especially ear-piercing. Chi-chi, along with the high-pitched cries of tens of thousands of birds, countless densely packed bolts of black lightning were quickly released from Chu Hen's body and climbed onto the death god's scythe in his hand. The violent power of dark lightning was like a black lightning net, covering the sky and covering the earth as it shrouded the death demonic beast in front of him. Facing the terrifying monster that was as large as a small mountain, a cold glint flickered in Chu Hen's eyes. His hands tightly grasped the handle of the death god's scythe and chopped towards the ant queen's large head with a dragging stance. Evil creature, you have too many heads. I'll take care of one for you. Rumble. Dark lightning interweaved, deafening, and the sky darkened. Waves of air surged into the sky. Chu Hen was like the god of lightning in the midst of a storm. The death scythe, which was surrounded by the majestic power of dark lightning, suddenly expanded to a width of 300 meters. Clang! In the blink of an eye, the extremely powerful attack struck the head of the queen ant of death evil beast. The giant scythe, covered in thousands of lightning tribulations, had the power to split the heavens. Boom! A violent tremor rang out, and the mighty aftermath swept out in all directions. The impact, which was comparable to the undercurrents of the deep sea, instantly exploded between the demonic beast of death and Chu Hen. Space trembled. Chu Hen felt his arms go numb, and his palms felt like they were about to crack. In the next second, the death god's scythe in his hand broke into two with a bang. What? The expressions of Dan Zhen, Hua Shui, Haozi, Sulang, and the rest of the people from Mount Kunliu changed greatly. Even Chu Hen's weapon had been broken. Just how terrifying was the defense of this demonic beast of death. Jia, The huge body of the demonic beast of death swayed back and forth as it took a few steps back. The surrounding buildings were crushed into pieces. There was a white mark that was 2 to 3 meters wide on the head of the demonic beast of death. Apart from that, there were no other injuries. Hey, idiots! You want to break through the defense of the demonic beast of death with such little ability? You really overestimate yourself. Gao Lang, the top genius of the blood refining hall, sneered disdainfully. Nangong Hao, who was dealing with the demonic beast of death, frowned and his face turned gloomy. Just as the demonic beast of death steadied itself and was about to launch another round of attack, Chu Hen shouted, "Mu Feng, Sect Master, Qi Zhang, got it!" Mu Feng shouted. Qi Zhang also replied, "Got it!" Sword Pagoda, Buddha's chop. Mu Feng let out an explosive shout. Immediately, several surging dark blue pillars of light flew out from his body. The dazzling pillars of light were like intertwining dragons that soared into the sky. Mu Feng raised the demon's sword in his hand high up, and a dazzling light pattern burst out. Rumble! A thunderous rumble swept out, and then an ancient pagoda that was 1,000 meters tall appeared in the sky above them. Moreover, a vast and surging desolate and ancient aura swept through the heavens and the earth. After that, the ancient pagoda descended from the sky and crushed down towards the demonic beast of death like a divine object. The demonic beast of death was unable to dodge in time, and a powerful force that was comparable to the weight of Mount Tai collided with its body. In an instant, the heavens collapsed and space warped. Boundless blue light soared into the sky, and layer upon layer of waves of air crushed towards the surroundings. A thick layer of the soil on the ground was scraped off, and the monstrous aura of the demonic beast of death was suppressed once more. With it, as the center, an enormous crater swiftly appeared on the ground. But even then, there weren't many injuries on the demonic beast of death. Heaven's eye! The attack of the 1,000 Crane sect master, Qizhang, followed closely behind. Divine radiance that was as dazzling as the sun appeared in the sky, and then golden rain and divine radiance intersected around Qizhang. Oem! Oem! After that, the vertical eye at the center of Qizhang's forehead opened up, and then a beam of silver light shot out explosively from within it. As it moved, the beam of silver light rapidly dispersed and expanded into the shape of an enormous funnel. Swoosh! The funnel enveloped the demonic beast of death, and it instantly seemed as if it had fallen into a swamp. It felt like its entire body was carrying an extremely heavy burden, and its ferocious aura was suppressed once more. But in merely a second, the ferocious aura of the demonic beast of death rebounded. Qi Zhang's face turned pale, and he gritted his teeth as he shouted, "Chu Hen, I can't hold on for much longer. It's already enough." Chu Hen's high-spirited words were spat out from his mouth. Once those words were spoken, everyone present was completely shocked. His voice hadn't finished resounding through the air when Chu Hen's entire body suddenly erupted with dazzling and resplendent starlight, and he seemed like a bright moon that hung high in the sky. Rumble! Swoosh! In the next instant, 7 silver light patterns flew out of his body like spiritual vines, and they extended and expanded endlessly. Chu Hen's eyes turned cold, and his Adam's apple bobbed up and down as he shouted in a stern voice, "Fecta chains, trap gods, and demons!" The 7 silver spiritual vines immediately transformed into 7 enormous thick chains, and under the silver light, the 7 enormous chains looked like wings with flickering light patterns. The silver chains rushed forward at high speed, like 7 silver serpents. Chu Hen stood within the chains, and his aura was monstrous, shocking everyone present. What? At this moment, even Qi Hanyu, Wen Liang, Liao Qixio, and Holai, the 4 top experts, were surprised by the scene before them. Under the astonished gazes of the countless people present, the 7 enormous chains that emitted silver light directly wrapped around the demonic beast of death and tightly bound it. The demonic beast of death let out a long, sharp roar, and black gas rose outside its body. It seemed that it was going to break the chains, and its sharp claws and tentacles were flying randomly. However, at this moment, Chu Hen, like a flowing light, left a series of shadows in the void and flashed to the huge head of the queen ant in the twinkling of an eye. A majestic sword momentum comparable to a torrent burst out of Chu Hen's body. With a whoosh sound, a crystal green holy sword appeared in his hand. Blue ran sword. Liao Qishou's face changed, and then he shouted, "Stop him!" On the other side, Ho Lai also clenched his fists, and his eyes were surging with coldness. "Stop him!" The experts of the blood refining hall flew up and rushed toward Chu Hen. However, Chu Hen was unmoved. He held the hilt of the blue ran sword with both hands, and the tip of the sword pointed down. Streaks of dark thunder flew out again and lingered on the sword. Slash! The heavy momentum exploded in everyone's ears. Chu Hen exerted force in his arms, and his blood vessels bulged. He held the blue ran sword tightly, and the rapid sound of breaking wind flew past his ears. Under the shocked gazes, the blue ran sword, which exuded a strong destructive aura, stabbed diagonally at the white mark caused by the sickle of death on the queen ant's head. Bang! The power of the blue ran sword was unstoppable. The terrifying sword momentum suddenly broke the defense layer of the demonic beast of death, and the sharp sword blade deeply pierced into the opponent's head. Then, with a muffled bang sound, a rain of blood and stinky liquid splashed. A green sword light abruptly pierced through the queen ant's head, and with a strong posture, it penetrated one of the giant eyes of the queen ant's head. Chapter 762. Bang! A muffled explosion resounded in everyone's ears. Everyone's pupils violently shrank. A green sword light had pierced through the death evil beast's head, destroying one of its giant eyes. Seeing the scene, everyone in Mount Kunliu was very excited. Senior brother Chu Hen, well done. Awesome. However, before they could be happy, an incomparably furious and monstrous aura burst out from the body of the evil beast of death. Howl! The howl of the furious evil beast of death changed. Everyone could feel its endless anger and soaring hatred. Boom! In an instant, the surging black gas was comparable to an erupting volcano and a tsunami. The world shook, the sky darkened, and the cold power swept in all directions with the momentum of toppling mountains and overturning seas. The 7 silver chains wrapped around the body of the evil beast of death were all shattered. Chu Hen's face changed slightly. He pulled out the blue ran sword and quickly retreated. Rumble! The powerful black airwave was like a raging tsunami, wantonly crashing against all the people and buildings around it, including Chu Hen. The surrounding experts of Mount Kunliu and the blood refining hall were all shaken and flew backward. Many people with relatively weak cultivation were seriously injured and vomited blood on the spot. Anger, absolute anger. The evil beast of death kept howling. Although half of the Ant Queen's head was blown off by Chu Hen, the part of the Scorpion King was still intact. The most disgusting thing was that the part of the Ant Queen was not dead yet. The half of the head was still twisting back and forth flexibly, looking extremely ferocious and terrifying. Howl! The angry evil beast of death glared at Chu Hen in front of it with scarlet eyes. Whoosh! It directly flew out and attacked Chu Hen with its huge scorpion pincer. The surging black gas was like a torrent that broke through the dam, unstoppable. Bang! When the two collided, Chu Hen was once again shaken and repelled. The blood in his body surged, and his throat felt slightly salty. This beast is actually so powerful? Chu Hen was secretly shocked, as expected of a new species formed from the fusion of the bloodlines of 2 top beast emperors. It was not something he could resist at all. Senior brother Chu Hen, let us help you. When a few young disciples of Mount Kunliu saw this, they immediately turned back from the retreating troops. intending to step forward and assist. But in the next second, he was sent flying by the demonic beast of death's poisonous stinger. He crashed heavily onto the ground and vomited blood. "Hey," Ho-Lai sneered and said, "if you think that this evil beast of death is so easy to deal with, then you're wrong. I'm sorry to tell you that it is completely enraged. It will hunt you down to the end, and it won't rest until it's dead. Ha 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 ha. An evil species that was born to kill." Chi Han Yu and Wen Liang's expressions grew increasingly grim. The combat power of the demonic beast of death was too strong. With the strength of Chu Hen and the others, they could not contend against it at all. Was Mount Kunliu really going to perish here today? However, at this moment, something unexpected happened again. Chu Hen actually flew in the opposite direction of Mount Kunliu's retreat. "Chu Hen!" "Hua!" Shui exclaimed in confusion. "I'll lure it away. You guys retreat. I'll help you," Mu Feng said. "No need. You help them cover their retreat." Swoosh! Then Chu Hen flew across the sky and purposely passed in front of the demonic beast of death. The latter could be said to be extremely furious. Like a ferocious beast that had lost its mind, it turned around and chased after Chu Hen. He's really a hero who sacrificed himself for justice. Unfortunately, most of those who wanted to be heroes died especially miserably. Liao Qixio smiled coldly and then said with disdain, "Don't worry about him. The rest of you, go after the defeated troops of Mount Kunliu." In Liao Qixio's opinion, a mere Chu Hen could only die in front of the demonic beast of death. The disparity in strength was so great that there was no need to send reinforcements. In less than 10 minutes, the demonic beast of death would return with Chu Hen's broken limbs. At that time, the remaining troops of Mount Kunliu would be annihilated here. Knowing that Chu Hen was far from being a match for the demonic beast of death, the people of Mount Kunliu took this opportunity to retreat as soon as possible. Haozi, Dan Zhen, and the others were hesitant about whether they should go and help Chu Hen. After a brief moment of hesitation, it was better not to cause trouble for Chu Hen. After all, it was much easier for him to escape alone than with 2 people. "Retreat. I hope you can come back alive." Lang Lingyan watched the man and the beast disappear into the sky. Her eyes were filled with some complicated emotions. Nangong Ju's eyes narrowed slightly. Then he moved and retreated while fighting. Roar! The demonic beast of death was so strong that Chu Hen did not dare to stop for even a moment. The cold and gloomy aura was like the north wind blowing on his back. Chu Hen raised his speed to the fastest. His slightly serious face did not have the slightest hint of panic. Boom! Bang! The demonic beast of death was extremely violent in the process of chasing. Mountains and peaks were flattened by it. Mountains collapsed and the ground cracked. Rocks flew everywhere. Shock waves surged down one after another. Chu Hen was secretly startled. This beast was really not just a normal kind of ferocious. At this moment, he could not help but admire the ability of the blood refining hall to create such a powerful and abnormal species. The strength of the demonic beast of death was at least at the level of a level 7 or 8 beast emperor. Once it reached adulthood, it was very likely to become a heavenly beast. Heavenly beast. To Chu Hen, who was currently only at the 2nd level of the Earth Profound Realm, it could truly be said to be a colossus. The demonic beast of death was chasing more and more fiercely. The distance between them was shrinking rapidly. The demonic beast of death was in a rage. It would not stop until it killed Chu Hen. Chu Hen, on the other hand, calmly and unhurriedly moved forward. Moreover, he constantly changed the direction he was heading towards. Towering mountains, lush forests, and very quickly, a vast deep pool appeared in Chu Hen's line of sight. There was a slope in the middle of the pool. As far as the eye could see, below the precipitous precipice, there was clear water and blue waves. It was a beautiful and unique scene. This is it. Chu Hen curled his lips slightly. He looked back at the demonic beast of death, which was less than 200 meters away from him. I'm going to give it to you as a friend. Howl! The demonic beast of death was more furious. It waved its sharp claws and pounced on him. Chu Hen's eyes turned cold. He directly rushed to the deep pool. At the same time, the blue sky sword in his hand burst out a strong sword light. He waved his sword. A sword light with a width of 300 meters flew out. It directly hit the deep pool and caused endless waves. In the next second, a giant beast seemed to be awakened at the bottom of the deep pool. Chapter 763. Rumble! The violent turbulence instantly destroyed the tranquility of the deep pool. Along with the raging waves that soared into the sky, more than a dozen incomparably huge and sturdy tentacles directly flew out from the bottom of the pool. Like a mad dragon emerging from the sea, they rolled up an irresistible momentum and attacked Chu Hen. At the same time, the ferocious and earth-shaking death evil beast behind him had already caught up. Boundless ferocious energy that was comparable to the attack of a mountain came crashing down. Its scorpion pincers danced, and its giant claws swung wildly, displaying a life-threatening momentum. In front of him was the giant pool beast, and behind him was the death evil beast. In an instant, Chu Hen was directly trapped in a siege from both the front and the back. They were all here to take his life. The pressure formed by the might of these two forces caused the space where Chu Hen was to fall into a distortion. Even the defensive power of the true Yuan outside his body was crushed and shattered. However, at this critical moment, Chu Hen suddenly flipped his left hand, and a warm and lustrous jade pendant appeared in his palm. His true Yuan was rapidly injected into the jade pendant, and soon after, the jade pendant immediately blossomed with a gentle light pattern. Buzz! With a trembling sound of air waves, a powerful radiance completely wrapped Chu Hen within it. In the next second, the radiance rapidly converged and, together with Chu Hen, disappeared from where he was. Bang! Immediately after, the huge tentacles of the giant pool beast collided with the giant claws of the death evil beast. Monstrous splashes exploded one after another, shaking the heavens and the earth. Wujia! The disappearance of Chu Hen directly caused the death evil beast's anger to soar. In its rage, the other party waved its scorpion pincers without any regard for the consequences, and subsequently cut off the two tentacles of the giant pool beast. Once this happened, it immediately aroused the wrath of the mysterious underwater giant beast. The surging ferocious power was comparable to an erupting volcano, and the huge tentacles quickly began to entangle the death evil beast. Swoosh! At this moment, on a mountain ridge about 500 miles away, a bunch of illusory afterimages appeared in the void, and then steadily flashed and landed on the peak of a mountain, transforming into a figure. Who? Feeling the peace around him, Chu Hen breathed a sigh of relief. He had finally shaken off that monster. I've used up another life-saving opportunity. Chu Hen lowered his head to look at the exquisite jade pendant in his hand. The soft light slowly faded away, and with a slight cracking sound, a second crack appeared on it. He could only use it 3 times. A few months ago, when he encountered Tuoba Shah and was being chased by that mysterious expert, he had used up 1 chance. Today was the second time, so it could still be used once more. Of course, Chu Hen was also in a situation where he had no other choice. In that situation just now, Chu Hen had 2 choices. One was to use the life-saving jade pendant, and the other was to consume the post-cauldron rebirth pill that the flying immortal hallmaster, Chi Hanyu, had bestowed upon him. But in comparison, the former was safer. It's about time to be the Oriole. Don't disappoint me, then. Chu Hen flew up and looked at his surroundings. After determining his location, he turned into a ray of light and disappeared into the horizon. To Chu Hen, the ancient desolation heaven domain was like a brand new world. Here, the various sects, forces, and races wouldn't have any restrictions or restraints. Many hostile sects could settle their grudges without any fear. Rather than saying that the ancient Desolation Heaven domain was a blessed land left behind by the great figures of the past generations, it was more like a place of competition. Survival of the fittest, survival of the fittest. Did I go in the wrong direction? Soon, Chu Hen discovered that he had chosen the wrong direction. Previously, the deep pool was located under a cliff, and there was plenty of vegetation nearby. However, this place was a desolate desert. Without much hesitation, Chu Hen changed his direction and continued to move forward. Right now, he still did not know the specific situation of Mount Kunliu and the blood-refining hall. After cleaning up the mess at the deep pool, he had to hurry back to Mount Kunliu's team as soon as possible. About a quarter of an hour later, Chu Hen successfully returned to the deep pool. Before even reaching the deep pond, Chu Hen could clearly feel an incomparably intense, heaven-shaking turbulence. The mountains trembled, the vegetation swayed, and the ferocious beast roars shook in all directions. Chu Hen was secretly shocked. As expected, it was a terrifying existence that was comparable to the death evil beast. Previously, he had personally witnessed the giant beast of the deep pool killing for experts of the earth's profound realm in an instant. It seemed like he had made the right choice in luring the evil beast of death here. Immediately, Chu Hen concealed his aura and quietly approached the front. As soon as he arrived at the deep pool, Chu Hen was instantly stunned by the scene in front of him. Magnificent, absolutely magnificent. The originally clear blue pool could be described as overturning rivers and seas, and the soil slopes in the middle of the pool were all gone. Inside the pool, two terrifying monsters were engaged in a fierce battle. In addition to the death evil beast, which was covered with shells, the other monster had many strong tentacles with suckers and a crimson, soft body. Its appearance was very similar to a giant octopus. However, it was different from an octopus in that its head was more like a giant skull. Its dark and evil appearance was like a creature from hell, which made people shudder. Chu Hen's eyes slightly narrowed, and his face showed a bit of surprise. It was the first time for him to see this kind of demon beast, and he had never even heard of it before. However, it was undeniable that the opponent's fighting strength was particularly strong. Boom! Bang! The fight between the demon beasts was far more wild and rude than that of human beings. The tentacles of the skull octopus entangled the body of the death evil beast, which constantly struggled and fiercely stabbed the head of the opponent with its giant scorpion claws. Jia, the demonic beast of death with two heads, was even more brutal. Its whole body was emitting a thick black wave of air. Then it let out a sharp whistle. The poisonous scorpion stinger that was hidden on its back suddenly pierced through the air and pierced the skull octopus's face with a strong and dangerous aura. Woo! The skull octopus immediately let out a bugle-like cry, and at the same time the skin of the opponent that was hit instantly changed from crimson to dark purple. With one hit, the death evil beast was extremely excited. It waved its claws and once again stabbed the eyes of the opponent. However, the skull octopus stood up with its tentacles, lifted its huge body, and climbed onto the back of the death evil beast. Following that, the skull octopus's huge mouth opened, and sharp parrot-like teeth came out of its mouth, and quickly bit the head of the ant queen of the death evil beast. The death evil beast had a bad feeling, and struggled with all its might. However, this time, the skull octopus was obviously faster, and immediately closed its sharp parrot-like teeth. Bang! With an explosive sound, the ant queen's head exploded like a watermelon, and all kinds of stinky red and white mucus splattered everywhere. Woo-chia! The heavily injured death evil beast rolled violently in the water, and huge waves rose to the sky. The skull octopus tightly wrapped around the death evil beast, and the suckers on each of its tentacles were firmly attached to the body of the death evil beast. No matter how much the death evil beast struggled, the skull octopus would not let go. The clear pond was stirred up and became extremely turbid. The death-evil beast wanted to climb out, but the skull octopus was struggling to drag it down. The scene of the two beasts fighting was very spectacular. Buzz! However, at this moment, a powerful aura suddenly shrouded the world. Swish! In the next moment, a bright green holy sword flew high up in the sky and attracted the power of heaven from all directions. The green holy sword rotated rapidly, stirring up the sky, and immediately transformed into thousands of peerless sword shadows. The thousands of sword shadows transformed into a magnificent and peerless sword rainbow. The biting, cold, murderous aura crushed the whole area. The two ferocious beasts below didn't even have time to react, and the thousands of peerless sword shadows slanted down like the 9 heavens Milky Way, rolling up an endless destructive aura and attacking their bodies. Bang! The air waves soared to the sky, and the sword light flashed. The swift and fierce sword shadows penetrated the skull octopus's head and the death-evil beast's back. In an instant, blood rained down, and the ferocious beasts wailed. Chapter 764. Hiss! A circle of powerful sword chi waves swept across the deep pool below. Layers of ripples surged up, and the central area of the pool sank deeply. A scarlet rain of blood quickly dyed the pool red, and it spread to the surroundings. Roar! Woo! After a short and hurried wail, the huge bodies of the skeletal octopus and the demonic beast of death were like overturned ships. With a bang sound, they heavily smashed onto the ground, splashing countless splashes that blotted out the sky and covered the earth. Shoo! Soon after, the blue Ran sword dragged out a vigorous airwave light image in the air and returned to Chu Hen's palm. Standing at the peak of the mountain, Chu Hen looked down at the deep pool. He looked at the death demonic beast that had died in the arms of the skeletal octopus and slowly let out a sigh of relief. Killing this death demonic beast had made a great contribution to Mount Kunliu. Even so, Chu Hen couldn't help but shake his head. In his opinion, it wasn't worth it to use up a life-saving opportunity to lure the death demonic beast here. After all, this was only the first day in the ancient desolate heaven domain. What they would encounter in the future was still unknown, especially for Wuwang Valley where Yi Yao was. He had to be fully prepared to face the young valley master, Shintu Etian. But now he didn't even know where the team from Wuwang Valley was. When he thought of this, Chu Hen suddenly felt that there were still many things he had yet to accomplish. Let's meet up with the team first. Chu Hen murmured softly. He immediately prepared to leave, but just as he turned around, he subconsciously glanced at the pool and was suddenly stunned. Something unexpected happened. The skeletal octopus and the death demonic beast corpses had shrunk a lot. What was going on? Chu Hen frowned slightly. He knew that some demonic beasts had the ability to change their size, but they had already been killed by him. The two corpses didn't have that ability. Then, under Chu Hen's increasingly shocked gaze, the corpses of the two demonic beasts shriveled at a speed visible to the naked eye. Compared to before, their bodies had shrunk a lot. Something is devouring their blood essence. The sacred wing, heavenly flame, Sparrow's voice rang in Chu Hen's mind. Chu Hen was slightly startled. He glanced sideways and said, "Can you not say the same thing every time? It scares people to death." "What else?" "Wait until I want to ask you, then you can speak." "I wasn't in the mood at that time." The man retorted in disdain. Chu Hen couldn't help laughing. He gently sniffed and returned to the topic. "What did you say just now? There's something underwater?" "You'll know once you go down and take a look." Chu Hen was a little hesitant. "What, are you afraid of death?" The saintly winged heavenly flame sparrow continued to make sarcastic remarks. "Don't worry, there are no signs of living beings below. In other words, that ghost octopus is the only living being here." Ghost octopus? Chu Hen was slightly surprised. The name was quite vivid. In just a few blinks of an eye, The skeletal octopus and the demonic beast of death were left with a layer of dry skin and an empty shell. Their blood essence was sucked dry in an instant. Looking at the scene before him, the curiosity in Chu Hen's heart was completely aroused. Then, with a movement of his body, he turned into a beam of light and plunged into the water like a sharp sword. After the fierce battle, the deep pool quickly calmed down. The turbid pool water also slowly became clear again. The cold current penetrated the true essence defense layer and attacked Chu Hen. He raised his guard and dived into the deep pool. Although the saintly winged heavenly flame sparrow said that there were no signs of living beings underwater, this was the ancient, desolate heaven realm. He had to show respect to anything unknown. The deep pool was very deep, dark, and cold. Because it was close to the mountain wall, there were many cold and hard rocks and caves underwater. The pitch-black caves gave off a mysterious and unfathomable feeling of oppression. A ferocious underwater creature could rush out at any time. Slowly and unknowingly, Chu Hen had already reached a depth of nearly a kilometer. In the dark underwater world, a ray of refracted light was caught by the corner of Chu Hen's eyes. Following this weak light, he could vaguely feel a trace of ruthless aura. This ruthless aura originated from the demonic beast of death and the skeletal octopus's blood essence. Looks like I'll know what's going on soon. Chu Hen's eyes were slightly cold as he followed the refracted light. Immediately after, a gentle light pattern illuminated the space below. In such a dark and cold environment, the light was like a bright moon in the endless night. Dazzling and dazzling, there were countless large and small rocks piled up at the bottom of the clear water. In the center of the rocks, there was a strange stone that looked like a gem. This stone was oval, 3 to 4 meters long and 2 meters wide. It looked like a large inkstone. The inkstone had a jade-white luster, and it was covered with exquisite stone patterns. "What's that?" Chu Hen raised his eyebrows and approached the inkstone. He saw that the stone patterns on it were bright red and emitted an astonishing, ruthless aura. It was the power of the demonic beast of death and the skeletal octopus's blood essence. The patterns formed by the blood essence slowly flowed on the inkstone and seeped into it. Very quickly, all the stone patterns disappeared without a trace. However, the light emitted by the inkstone was surging with strands of dense, red mist. What a strange thing. As soon as Chu Hen finished speaking, the sacred winged, heavenly flame bird's excited voice sounded. "It's actually the immortal breeding inkstone." "Damn brat, I don't know what kind of dog shit luck you have. Immortal breeding inkstone? What's this?" Chu Hen was both excited and puzzled. "You don't know?" "That's right. With your level, it's impossible for you to come into contact with something of that level," the sacred winged, heavenly flame bird said. Chu Hen rolled his eyes in annoyance. "Can you only talk about this? I'm in a hurry." The other party snorted and said with a slightly moved expression, "Let's put it simply. The immortal breeding inkstone is a material used to forge artifacts." "What artifact?" "Hiss." Even Chu Hen could not help but gasp when he heard these two words. He did not expect the stone in front of him to have such a great origin. This was indeed a level that he could not come into contact with. Apart from that, the greatest effect of the immortal breeding inkstone is that it can absorb all kinds of energy from the outside and store it. If it's used to forge artifacts, it can greatly increase the grade and power of a weapon. After listening to the other party's explanation, Chu Hen narrowed his eyes and rubbed his chin. "To you, just the material used to forge artifacts shouldn't be enough to make you so excited, right?" Chapter 765. The immortal incubation inkstone was a precious material used to refine divine weapons. Divine weapons only existed in legends to the current Chu Hen. Not to mention coming into contact with one, he hadn't even heard of one on the other hand. This immortal spirit-giving inkstone that was a few meters wide required at least 2,000 to 3,000 years to be nurtured. Once it was released to the outside world, the sects and powers of the entire Eastern Victory State would probably fight to the death for it. After listening to the saintwing Heavenly Flame Sparrow's explanation, Chu Hen's heart was filled with restless waves, and his eyes flickered with a hint of pleasant surprise. The ancient desolate heaven territory is really filled with treasures. I never expected such a precious treasure to be hidden in a pool like this. Take it. Chu Hen didn't even think before he started to take the immortal incubation inkstone. Because this immortal incubation inkstone was connected to a huge rock below, Chu Hen first used the blue sky sword to cut the entire immortal incubation inkstone apart from the rock layer. The immortal incubation inkstone that emanated dense energy looked like a peculiar bed made of cold jade, and it revealed an extremely pure and powerful fluctuation of energy. I'll take it with me first and slowly study it later. Chu Hen immediately placed the immortal incubation inkstone into a separate storage device. After doing all this, Chu Hen's figure flashed, and he moved towards the top of the pool. Rumble! The surging water exploded on the surface of the deep pool, and Chu Hen flashed high up into the sky along with a wave of water mist. He glanced at the two withered corpses of the enormous beasts that floated on the surface of the water, and he didn't stay here any longer. He swiftly returned to the way he came from. Not long after, the desolate city where the fierce battle between Mount Kunliu and the Blood Refinement Hall had erupted gradually appeared within Chu Hen's field of vision. After the chaotic battle, the desolate city had returned to its usual deathly silence and peace. However, the difference was that the desolate city had been reduced to ruins, and all the buildings in the city had been reduced to ruins. As far as the eye could see, the ground was littered with corpses and dead venomous insects, snakes, and ants. Looks like the battlefield has shifted. I wonder if Mount Kunliu has successfully retreated. Chu Hen muttered softly. The battle between the sects was indeed intense. In the blink of an eye, an entire city had been destroyed. Moreover, based on the previous situation, Chi Hanyu, Wen Liang Holai, and Liao Qixio had held back. They all knew that this was only the beginning of the ancient, desolate heaven domain. After staying here for a while, Chu Hen once again headed in the direction of Mount Kunliu's retreat. Walking in the air, he was particularly cautious about the surrounding environment. After all, in this case, there was a higher probability of encountering the people of the Blood Refining Hall first. At that time, before they could regroup with their companions, they would be killed. Very soon, day and night changed, and it was already evening. As the sky continued to darken, the traces left behind by the team in front were gradually covered by the night sky. Especially in this strange environment, it was even more difficult to determine the direction and route. Not long after, Chu Hen discovered that he had already lost the target of his pursuit. In all directions, there was only desolation and silence. I can only try my luck. Immediately, Chu Hen randomly chose a direction and began to pursue. However, another 4 hours passed, and he still found nothing. Looking at the unfamiliar towering mountains and precipitous ridges, rock caves, and deep ravines, Chu Hen's face revealed a helpless smile. It seemed that the more he chased, the further he went. This time he had completely lost the target of the main group. However, on second thought, the biggest threat, the death evil beast, had already been trapped and killed by him. In addition, under the leadership of the Fairy Temple Master and the Demon-Slaying Temple Master, they should not be defeated by the Blood Refining Hall. After all, Mount Kunliu was an upper-class sect in the Dongxing state. How could it be destroyed here so easily? Thinking of this, Chu Hen's eyebrows relaxed, and the worry in his eyes faded away. At this moment, a strange chill suddenly rose in the surroundings. Chu Hen was slightly startled. Following that, he discovered that a dense fog had risen from the mountain forest in front of him. The misty white fog was like the water vapor and dust that floated in the air. It quickly enveloped the entire area and spread towards Chu Hen's location. Very quickly, Chu Hen's body was restricted by the dense fog, and he could only see a distance of around 200 meters. It was normal for it to be foggy at night. Chu Hen did not have too many other thoughts. However, The mist made Chu Hen lose the only remaining sense of direction. Then he could only move aimlessly according to his feelings. Chu Hen bypassed the deep mountains and cliffs, but Chu Hen could not walk out of the area shrouded in the mist. Not only that, but the area he reached was even more deserted and desolate. Swoosh! Suddenly, a sharp and hurried sound of something breaking through the wind came from behind him. Chu Hen's eyes turned cold, and he shouted coldly, "Who is attacking me from behind?" A beam of dark golden light was reflected in his indifferent eyes. Chu Hen was slightly surprised. What appeared in front of him was actually a strange bone bird. There was no flesh or blood on this bone bird's body, and only a skeleton was left. In its empty eye sockets, a pair of blood-red eyes shone with a strange light. Not a living creature. Chu Hen was stunned. He could feel a thick death aura from the other party's body. If it was a living creature, it should not have such a heavy death aura. Chu Hen instinctively dodged to the side. Swoosh! The bone bird flew past his shoulder. Then it drew an arc in the air and charged towards Chu Hen again. It was fast like an arrow leaving the bow and was very aggressive. Again, a sliver of disdain appeared on Chu Hen's face. He swung his palm out, and the boundless force of his palm surged down like a violent wave. In an instant, it struck the body of the bone bird. The latter was directly shattered into fragments of light that filled the sky. They fluttered in all directions and disappeared without a trace. However, after a while, Chu Hen discovered that in the sky above the forest in the area ahead, there were still rays of beautiful golden light flickering. The light rays moved freely in the fog. When he looked carefully, the light rays were all kinds of strange creatures. Most of these creatures were skeleton-like things, and they looked very evil. What the hell are these things? Chu Hen was even more confused. He immediately asked the sacred-winged, heavenly flame sparrow, "Do you know?" "Demon spirit, looks like you've unintentionally entered a land of extreme negative energy." "Demon spirit? Land of extreme negative energy?" Chu Hen frowned slightly. "What's a demon spirit?" "It's a group of spirits that have almost no intelligence. They're formed from the remnant thoughts and souls of dead creatures. Demon spirits don't have a physical body, and they don't have any thoughts. The only thing they can do is to continuously obtain spiritual energy to survive in this world." The sacred-winged, heavenly flame sparrow explained. "The birth of a demon spirit requires a place with a lot of yin qi, and the spirit qi also needs to reach a relatively abundant level. Some demon spirits can even attach themselves to flowers, trees, birds, insects, and strange beasts to survive, and even some objects and tools can become their shelter. The reason why that bone bird attacked you just now was because you have a lot of spirit qi in your body, and it was completely subconscious." "I see. The world is really big, and there are all kinds of strange things. However, they're not aggressive at all." "That's not necessarily the case," the sacred-winged heavenly flame sparrow refuted Chu Hen's thoughts. "Although demon spirits generally don't have any intelligence, they're still dangerous. Some demon spirits will continuously devour other demon spirits or some treasures during the process of strengthening. After a long time, there'll be powerful existences among the demon spirits. I've seen a demon spirit at the profound heaven stage before." "No way!" Chu Hen felt chills running up his spine when he heard the sacred-winged, heavenly flame sparrow's words. The sacred-winged, heavenly flame sparrow added, "However, in my opinion, there won't be a demon spirit at that level in the ancient, desolate heaven realm." The corner of Chu Hen's eyes twitched slightly. This stupid bird was really good at playing tricks. He was almost fooled by it. Chapter 766. Chu Hen looked at the white fog that enveloped the mountain forest, as well as the demon's spiritual body that was moving through the white fog. Following the sacred-winged, heavenly flame bird's suggestion, Chu Hen immediately landed on the ground. He would stay here for the time being and would leave after daybreak tomorrow, At daybreak, the day and night cycle would change, with the sun dominating. At that time, the yin qi would weaken, and most of the demon spirits would go into hibernation. Although the demon spirits were creatures with low intelligence or no intelligence, they were more aggressive. In a situation where the road ahead was full of uncertainty, waiting for the day to move was the best choice. Once he returned to the ground, there were also many demon spirits gathered. However, these demon spirits were basically of a lower level. There were enchanting tree spirit vines, strange frogs running around everywhere, and some small stone monsters, compared to the withered bone demon spirits flying in the sky. The little fairies on the ground were much cuter. There were even a few palm-sized stone demon spirits jumping around Chu Hen's feet, as if they were trying to attract their attention. Chu Hen could not help but laugh. These little things did not have any offensive power, so there was no need to get rid of them. Soon after, Chu Hen temporarily rested on a soft, grassy field, waiting for the arrival of dawn. Woo! Ayo! The mountain forest was especially lively at night. From time to time, loud cries could be heard coming from the deep canyon in the distance. From time to time, a few demon spirits collided with each other, and a battle broke out. The chirping of insects, the whistling of birds, and the singing of nightingales. Listening to the lively music around him, Chu Hen's eyes became a little hazy, and he faintly felt the urge to sleep. Screech! At this moment, a loud and clear bird cry sounded in his mind. Chu Hen's body trembled, as if he had woken up from a dream. Then he felt his heart beat violently, and even his blood flowed quickly. What's wrong with you now? Chu Hen frowned. Just as he was about to scold, he found that there were many demon spirits gathered around him. Pairs of strange red pupils were like fierce wolves and dogs staring at their prey. Scram! Chu Hen secretly roared. A powerful aura gushed out from his body. A circle of majestic black light spread out in a sweeping manner, completely shattering the demonic spiritual bodies that were eyeing him covetously. Sorry. Then Chu Hen said apologetically, Humph. The sacred wing heavenly flame bird snorted coldly and mocked. You're not afraid of death. Do you really think that you can do whatever you want in the ancient, desolate heaven domain with your cultivation? Chu Hen touched his nose. I was careless. I don't know why I felt sleepy just now. The yin qi here is too heavy. The yang qi in your body has been weakened, and it's easy for you to fall into a coma. I see. Thank you for your concern. Chu Hen laughed heartily. This was the first time he was sincerely grateful to the other party. After a brief silence, the sacred-winged heavenly flame sparrow's voice rang out again. It seems like I need to teach you a secret technique. Oh. Chu Hen raised his eyebrows and asked in surprise, What secret technique? This secret technique is called the Sea of Universe technique. The name sounds pretty scary. Get lost if you don't want to learn it. I didn't say I don't want to learn it. Continue. Chu Hen raised his eyebrows and shook his head with a smile. Idiot. Don't beg me to teach you after I'm done. The sacred-winged heavenly flame sparrow was displeased and continued. This universal absorption technique can allow your true origin violet palace to form a little world that can contain the energy of everything in the world. Isn't it already? Chu Hen asked in confusion. Your current true origin violet palace is only able to contain and collect shapeless spirit energy, yet it's unable to contain material substances. Whereas the world absorption art can absorb some weapons, sacred objects, precious treasures, and other material substances into the true origin violet palace. The sacred-winged, heavenly flame, sparrow explained. Wait, you mean to say that my true origin violet palace can be turned into a storage ring? Yes, it's similar. The corner of Chu Hen's eyes slightly twitched. He suddenly had a feeling that he had nothing better to do. He had a storage device, so why did he have to spend so much effort to turn his true Yuan violet palace into a storage ring? It was really boring. However, based on his understanding of the sacred winged heavenly flame sparrow, Chu Hen thought it would not come up with such a boring secret technique to kill time. He immediately asked, "Then what?" "After that, you will be able to store some treasures into your true essence, Violet Palace. And according to the different characteristics of those treasures, you will be able to strengthen your true essence, Violet Palace. What I'm thinking of now is that immortal spirit nurturing inkstone. If you were to absorb it into your true essence, Violet Palace, the immortal spirit nurturing inkstone would be able to absorb the immortal spirit energy of the world." Hearing these words, Chu Hen's eyes couldn't help but light up. That's right. Why didn't I think of the celestial nurturing inkstone's characteristics of absorbing the essence of the sun, moon, and heaven and earth spirit energy? If I put it in my true origin, Violet Palace, wouldn't I be in a state of cultivation at all times? At that time, he would be able to enjoy the fruits of others' labor and save a lot of cultivation time. Do you still want to learn it now? The sacred winged, heavenly flame sparrow sneered frivolously. Chu Hen rubbed his forehead. How difficult is this secret technique? How long will it take to complete? It's not very difficult. It varies from person to person. A smart person would be able to complete it in a day, but a stupid person would not be able to complete it even after 3 to 5 years. In fact, at the level I was at, almost all experts put their weapons and treasures in their true origin, Violet Palace. After a weapon is immersed in true origin energy for a long time, not only will it gradually strengthen the weapon, but it will also become easier to use. After hearing this, Chu Hen came to a sudden realization and could not help but be tempted. "But I still don't understand why you're suddenly so good to me." "You're thinking too much. There are still many opportunities in the ancient, desolate heaven domain. If you can grasp it well, I can quickly return to my peak." The sacred winged heavenly flame sparrow had been in Chu Hen's body for so long that it understood each other's thoughts very well. There was no need for the sacred winged heavenly flame sparrow to lie to it. At the very least, it was certain that the sacred winged heavenly flame sparrow would definitely not harm Chu Hen. After all, to the sacred winged heavenly flame sparrow, helping Chu Hen was equivalent to helping itself. "All right, but I still have to thank you." Then it took out hundreds of high-grade origin crystals and scattered them around to set up a small defensive talisman array. "I hope I'm not the stupid person you're talking about." "That's hard to say." The sacred winged heavenly flame sparrow mocked indifferently. Then it began to guide Chu Hen in detail on how to cultivate the universal absorption technique.